Chapter 2481. Someone save me. Woo-woo. Someone save me. I am the princess of Gu country. If you save me, my father will reward you heavily. Save me. She cried over and over again, feeling more and more desperate. This place was too remote and desolate. Perhaps he could die here and no one would notice. She suddenly stood up, enduring the pain, and wanted to run out. But before she could take a step, her legs went soft and she knelt on the ground. She was in so much pain that she gasped. Pain, blood, darkness, loneliness, and the shadow of death shrouded her. Gu felt like she was going crazy from fear. Who is up there? Woo-woo, please save me. Gu curled herself into a ball and leaned against the wall, trembling. She cried so miserably that she almost couldn't shed any tears. Her stomach hadn't eaten anything for a day. She searched her clothes for a long time, but couldn't find anything to eat. So hungry, so painful, so tired. In this situation, even crying became a waste of energy. The excessive blood loss made her dizzy. She couldn't hold on anymore and fainted. Before she lost consciousness, her voice was small, full of grievance and fear. Father, save me. I won't pick flowers anymore. Wake up, don't sleep anymore. Gu felt like someone was patting her face. Her consciousness was hazy and she couldn't wake up. A pill was delivered to her mouth. She subconsciously wanted to reject it, but for some reason, she swallowed it with a gulp. That pair of cold hands patted her face again. You won't be able to wake up if you continue sleeping. When did the maids become so bold? How dare they pat her face? Gu opened her eyes and said angrily, "You are so big." It was dark. She was not in the palace now, but trapped in a deep cave. Then, who was patting her? Was it a human or a ghost? Gu felt all the hair on her body stand up. She opened her eyes wide and shrank back. Who are you? Are you a human or a ghost? Her voice was trembling, but she pretended to be strong. The cave was too dark. Gu couldn't see anything even when she opened her eyes, but she could feel that there was a creature in front of her. There was a chuckle in front of her and a lazy voice. Of course I am a human. It could make a sound. It was alive. Gu breathed a sigh of relief, then suddenly rushed up, accurately threw herself into the man's arms, tightly hugging his waist and not letting go. Please save me. She urgently needed to hug something alive and hot to dispel the fear in her heart. That man seemed to be staggered by her, but he still had the time to tease her. A beauty throwing herself into my arms. How dare I not? Only then did Gu realize that she had actually thrown herself into the arms of a strange man and even hugged his waist. She was so shocked that she jumped away. Letcher, let me go. However, she had forgotten that her leg was broken. Before she could jump up, she fell down. He fell to the ground with a bang sound. Gu was in so much pain that she couldn't get up for a long time. Tears were rolling in her eyes. She looked ahead in disbelief. Why didn't you catch me? He actually let her fall to the ground, and he didn't even help her. That person sighed, and his tone was rather infuriating. I was almost pushed down by Miss, but I was scolded as a lecher. I really don't dare to help you. Miss, it's better for you to get up by yourself. Chapter 2482. Gu blushed. She was the one who threw herself into his arms. Fortunately, he couldn't see clearly in the dark, so he definitely couldn't see her face. My leg is broken. I can't get up. Help me up. I definitely won't scold you this time. Gu said awkwardly. She waited for a long time, but that person didn't move at all. Hey, help me up. Gu subconsciously said. After thinking for a long time, she awkwardly added, I'm sorry. That person slowly walked over, but he didn't help her up. Instead, he picked her up. Her body was suddenly in the air, and she was startled. She reflexively hugged that person's neck, and her eyes were wide open. What do you want to do? That person laughed out, and his voice was charming and seductive. Don't look at me like that, little girl. If you keep looking, I'll have to do something even if I don't want to do it. Gu didn't know anything about these flirting words. She blinked her eyes, tilted her head, and asked in confusion, What do you want to do? Her long eyelashes fluttered as she looked at him. Her big eyes were pure and clear, and her cherry lips were as sweet as dew. She looked like a flower waiting to be picked. That person's eyes turned dark, and his gaze towards her had a trace of aggression. And this little girl was still recklessly teasing him. His lazy voice seemed to be a bit hoarse, and he breathed in her ear. For example, like this, then a warm and soft thing gently touched her cherry lips. He wanted to leave immediately, but he was addicted to her beauty and couldn't help but stick out the tip of his tongue, tracing her cherry lips. But in Ji-Yu's heart, it was as if a landmine had been thrown, and her little face instantly turned red. You. She couldn't say anything for a long time. She subconsciously wanted to struggle, and her uninjured left leg kicked his body. Her little hand also tried to push him. Let go of me. That person's voice was a bit hoarse. Little girl, don't move. His body seemed to be a bit hot, but Ji-Yu didn't know what was going on. She just wanted to break free from his embrace and struggled even harder. If you move again, I'll throw you down. In the darkness, the sound of that person grinding his teeth could be heard, as if he was enduring something. Ji-Yu always had an inexplicable sense of danger. He immediately stopped moving. The man placed her against a stone wall and then tore open her pants. Ji-Yu was shocked, and her voice changed. What are you doing? I am the princess of Ji-Yu country. If you dare to treat me like this, my father will definitely kill you. The man sneered and tapped her calf with his cool hand. What a great style. Just as she finished speaking, Ji-Yu felt a sharp pain in her right leg. It was so painful that tears instantly came out of her eyes and cold sweat broke out all over her body. She leaned against the wall and glared at the darkness in front of her. You will pay for what you did to me. The man knocked on her head and said, Little girl, you're biting Lu Dongbin like a dog. You don't know how to appreciate good intentions. He got up and walked outside. He was leaving. Ji-Yu's action was faster than her brain. She grabbed the man's sleeve and shouted, Don't go. I was wrong. At that moment, she also felt that her right leg seemed to be able to move. She understood that he wasn't taking advantage of her, but fixing her leg for her. Chapter 2483. But that person pulled out his sleeve and, as silent as he had come, quietly disappeared into the darkness. It was silent all around. Only the sound of her own heartbeat could be heard. Did he really leave? Ji-Yu abruptly got up, tears falling down her cheeks. She staggered forward. Don't go, don't give her a little hope, and immediately break it. She couldn't see anything in the darkness, so she panicked and ran around like a headless fly. She didn't know how many times she fell, but she got up again and groped forward. Her right leg had just been fixed, so it wasn't suitable for her to walk much. Now that Ji-Yu kept walking and falling, the pain was even worse. Despair, overwhelming despair. He really left. Ji-Yu helplessly sat down on the ground. What should she do? She was alone again. She didn't want to die. She didn't want to die here. That's right. Since that person could walk, there must be a way. Ji-Yu's eyes lit up. She pursed her lips and stood up. Enduring the pain, she groped forward 2 steps. Suddenly, she bumped into a warm wall. That familiar voice sounded again, with a trace of cynicism. Little girl, you came to throw yourself into my arms again. You didn't leave. Ji-Yu looked up in surprise. Although she couldn't see him, she could smell the fragrance on his body. Different from his frivolous personality, he had a faint cold fragrance on his body, like the plum blossoms in the early winter snow, exuding the fragrance of plum blossoms, but with the cold taste of ice and snow, refreshing the mind. That person chuckled, but didn't say anything. Ji-Yu was so happy that she didn't know what to do. She grabbed his sleeve and felt uneasy, so she simply threw herself into his arms again, holding his waist tightly and muttering in a low voice. Now you can't run away. He patted her head, a trace of deep thought in his eyes. But the words he said were a bit annoying. I say, Your Highness, can you just throw yourself into someone else's arms? Ji-Yu wanted to let go of her hands and maintain her princess's modesty. But in this deep underground where she couldn't see her fingers, modesty was nothing. So even though she was blushing, she still insisted on hugging him and hanging on to him like a koala bear. He desperately tried to find an excuse for himself. You came to save me, so you're not someone else? You're my savior, and I'll treat you with the same respect as my father. What kind of messed up logic was this? The man seemed to be speechless. He rubbed his forehead and said, Don't. I'm still young. I don't want to have a daughter out of nowhere. Jiyu stepped on his foot angrily and said, I said I will respect you, not to be your daughter. She felt that she had stepped on him a little too hard, and her heart skipped a beat. Would he get angry and abandon her again? Jiyu was really afraid of being alone, and her small hands unconsciously tightened a little. The man did not take the kick to heart at all. He even rubbed her hair in a good mood. Looks like your leg has recovered well. In another 2 days, we should be able to leave this place. 2 days. Jiyu almost jumped up. So long. That person said leisurely. Otherwise, with your current injured appearance, you will fall down before you can even get halfway up. Jiyu subconsciously said, Don't I still have you? The man chuckled. Little girl, you really think highly of me. Unfortunately, I was seriously injured in order to save you, so I can't take you away. Chapter 2484. Jiyu subconsciously touched his arm. Where are you hurt? I'll bandage it for you. That person's lips curled as he tapped her head. Can you see? Can't see. Jiyu obediently shut up. That person pulled her to sit on the ground and softly ordered, We'll be staying here for 3 days. You'll be able to last longer if you meditate here. After saying this, that person closed his eyes and focused on meditating. Jiyu sat quietly on the side, her small hand gently grabbing his sleeve. No matter what, she was no longer alone. Her fear had dissipated quite a bit, and she felt like she was about to enter the stage. Her stomach rumbled, and Jiyu felt so hungry that she was flustered. She wanted to tug at him, but she was afraid of disturbing his meditation. Her stomach was so hungry that Jiyu tightly grabbed his sleeve, wondering if she should tug at him or not. A white pastry exuding a fragrance appeared in front of her. That person lazily said, The princess is hard to serve. Eat. Jiyu rolled her eyes at him before happily picking up the pastry and eating it in small bites. After an unknown amount of time, she suddenly patted her head and grabbed that person's sleeve as she anxiously said, Let's go out tomorrow, all right? That person raised a brow. Why? Jiyu looked a bit anxious. I promised to bring someone out to play tomorrow. If she didn't keep her promise, Yi Qianshang might not kill Jun Luyi. That person's voice was a bit strange as he slowly said, Little girl, don't tell me you still don't know who I am? Jiyu could hear the sound of gritting teeth from his voice. She looked at him in a daze. Who are you? I asked from the beginning, but you didn't tell me your name. Yi Qianshang. Jiyu felt like she was about to smoke from thirst. The water Yi Qianshang brought wasn't enough for the two of them. Even if he gave all the water to her, it still wasn't enough for her. She could go a day without eating, but she definitely couldn't go a day without drinking water. Her consciousness was hazy and her head was dizzy. She seemed to see the god of death waving at her. Hey, his sighs seemed to come from the darkness. After a while, a kettle was handed over. Yi Qianshang's voice was a bit weak, but he was still calm as if nothing was bothering him. Drink. Jiyu subconsciously took the water bottle, like a person who had been dry for a long time and finally met the first rain. The water seemed to have a strange, fishy sweetness, but her brain was not working, so she naturally did not feel it. Whenever Jiyu felt extremely thirsty, Yi Qianshang would always bring out a pot of water. But later on, he stopped talking. Her consciousness was also on the verge of blurring. After an unknown period of time, Yi Qianshang patted her face. Little girl, wake up. We're leaving. Jiyu swayed for a while before she came back to her senses and stood up blankly. With a low sigh, she suddenly felt her body become light, and then her whole body flew into the air. That person's lazy voice came from above. Hug me. Jiyu obediently hugged his neck. The wind whistled, and she could feel that his body seemed to be a little sweaty. Close your eyes, he ordered again. Jiyu obediently closed her eyes. Her eyes lit up, and then she felt her feet land on the ground. Open your eyes. You seem like you're waiting for me to kiss you. Yi Qianshang teased her. Chapter 2484. 85. Jiyu opened her eyes, and her vision went from hazy to clear. There was a peach blossom forest in front of her, and her horse had already run away. There was a large hole not far away where she had fallen in. She revealed a tired smile. "Great, we're out." Before she could finish her sentence, her entire body went limp and collapsed. When she was about to fall to the ground, she fell into a cold and fragrant embrace. It was like a plum blossom that bloomed in the cold, bringing with it an icy aura. He caught her this time. Ji thought in a daze. Ji was awakened by her craving. There was a fire in front of her, and there was a skinned rabbit on the fire. The rabbit meat was roasted until it was golden yellow, and the oil dripped into the fire, making crackling sounds. The fragrance of the meat spread for 10 miles and woke Jiyu up from her craving. Jiyu stared at the meat on the fire. She hadn't eaten in a long time, and she was so hungry that her heart was scratching. "You're awake?" A casual voice sounded. Jiyu followed the rabbit meat and saw a hand as white as jade. Then she saw a wide purple robe embroidered with cloud patterns. Then, under the exquisite butterfly mask, that person had a faint smile on his face. That person took out a handkerchief and tore off a rabbit leg to throw to her. "Here, this is for you." The fragrance was overflowing. The color was golden yellow. It was fat, but not greasy. It was even better than the top chefs in the royal palace. Ji was moved to tears. She took a bite of the rabbit meat before looking up at him. Her eyes were filled with gratitude. "Why are you so good to me?" Yi Qianshang's lips curled into a smile. "Is it good?" Ji nodded. "Delicious. Too delicious." The smile on his lips deepened. Like feeding a pet, he gave her another rabbit leg. "Then eat more." How could she accept this? He hadn't eaten a single bite, yet Ji wanted to refuse, but she heard him slowly say, "The other half of the rabbit meat I exchanged for..." "Eat more?" "What?" Ji reflexively wanted to throw the rabbit meat back, but she paused after thinking about it. She glared at him before taking a bite of the meat. The world was big, but food was the biggest. Not to mention, he had saved her life. Ji could afford it. Yi Qianshang laughed as he looked at Ji with mischievous eyes. "You're really willing this time." Ji continued to eat and ignored him. When she was almost done, Yi Qianshang handed her another piece of roasted meat. Ji's eyes lit up, and she was clearly tempted, but she shook her head. "I can't afford it." Half of her savings could be exchanged for 2 rabbit legs. She couldn't afford it. How did this child grow up to be so innocent and adorable? Yi Qianshang couldn't help wanting to rub her head, but he couldn't do it because there was a bonfire between them. The moon was still bright, and there was a beauty by his side. Chapter 2486. Yi Qianshang revealed a gentle smile, but it was filled with foresight. "It depends on your performance." Ji clapped her hands and stood up. She revealed a proud smile to Yi Qianshang. "This princess dance will definitely satisfy you." Yi Qianshang took out a wine gourd from somewhere and lay down on the grass. His clothes were a bit messy, revealing his smooth marble chest. His peach blossom eyes shined with a captivating aura as he said with a soft smile, "Oh, then I'll wait and see." He raised his head and took a sip of wine. His movements were natural and unrestrained, but he was still elegant. Seeing this scene that made people's hearts beat faster, Jiyu quickly turned her face away. Was he the reincarnation of an enchantress? Jiyu stood in a peach blossom forest. Smelling the fragrance of the petals and the sound of the birds, she danced. The petals fluttered and stuck to her pink dress. The flower beauty was even more beautiful. She was like a peach blossom fairy dancing with the flowers and the moonlight as her companion. The moonlight was hazy as it scattered down on the world. The moonlight seemed to have a texture as it covered her in a layer of hazy moon veil. Twirling, kicking, bending. At the end of the dance, Jiyu suddenly threw the petals in her hand into the sky. The petals fell like rain, and the woman's smile was like a flower. Jiyu stood in the middle of the petals and revealed a proud smile to Yi Qianshang like a proud kitten. "How is it? Isn't this princess the #1 dancer in the world?" Little Princess Ji, you was the most proficient in zither, chess, calligraphy, painting, tea, dance, and flowers. Yi Qianshang looked at her in a daze under the moonlight. Pink clothes, black hair, starry eyes, and cherry lips. She was covered in moonlight as she smiled. Truly an enchantress. He slightly curled his lips and raised the jade gourd as he sincerely praised. You are worthy of your reputation. Jiyu had been with him for a long time, and this was the first time she heard him praise her instead of insulting her. She couldn't help feeling a bit proud. His pride lasted for 3 seconds before his voice slowly sounded with a trace of carelessness. Little princess, have you noticed that your pants are torn? Jiyu was stunned. She looked down and saw that her white calves were exposed. When the wind blew, it was a bit cold, rogue. Jiyu abruptly turned around, her face flushed red. That person's unruly laughter came from behind her, accompanied by his slightly demonic and somewhat low voice. Little girl, if I were a hoodlum, it wouldn't be just this. Jiyu ran away like a frightened rabbit. A strand of slippery fabric floated over with the wind and landed on her calf. Jiyu was stunned for a moment before picking it up. The purple cloth flowed with light under the moonlight. Jiyu touched it and knew that it was heavenly silkworm silk. This person was really rich. Yi Qianshang's lazy voice came from behind her with a playful tone. I'd rather ruin my robe than let the princess expose herself. Jiyu's face blushed. She silently tied the robe around her legs. The size was just right. It was obviously a cool material, but Jiyu felt a little hot. This warm current flowed from where the belt touched the skin, all the way up to the heart. Although this person had a vicious tongue and was frivolous, he was very attentive. That belt still carried his cool, plum fragrance, and it wrapped around her like a strand of silk. Jiyu sniffed herself and muttered, I smell like you. Yi Qianshang's eyes moved as he looked at the girl sniffing his clothes under the moonlight. When he heard her unconsciously teasing words, his heart felt like it was being scratched by a cat, making him feel a bit itchy. It was as if electricity was running through her body. She wanted to push him away, but her little hands were weak and powerless. She could only push weakly against his chest, looking as if she wanted to resist, but was also welcoming him. Yi Qianshang suddenly got up and ended the kiss. His eyes were as deep as the sea, and they were filled with intense emotions. He calmed his surging emotions and cursed, Enchantress. Jiyu took in large mouthfuls of fresh air. It took her a while to catch her breath, but she still felt pressured. When she looked up, she met that person's aggressive eyes. She was first surprised before becoming angry. Why are you still pressing down on me? Get off. Chapter 2488. Yi Qianshang was very obedient this time. He stood up and looked at Jiyu with a complicated gaze. Jiyu glared at him and tidied up her clothes. Her large eyes were filled with anger, grievance, and confusion. Why did he suddenly kiss her? Royal father said that only her husband could kiss her. He didn't say he wanted to marry her. Any kiss that wasn't for the sake of marrying her was a hooligan. She was angry for a while, but that person returned to his casual appearance. Her large eyes turned, and she suddenly revealed a sweet smile as she walked towards Yi Qianshang step by step. Imitating her mother's appearance when she saw her royal father, Jiyu revealed a sweet smile as she walked over. Yi Qianshang raised his brows. Did this little girl's personality change? But his eyes couldn't help falling on her. She was covered in moonlight and looked like a fairy that had fallen into the mortal world. She was pure and charming. She walked in front of him and revealed a smile. Qianshang, do you like me? His mind shook when she called him Qianshang. He looked at the stunning face in front of him and became a bit absent-minded. Why didn't he notice before that this little girl had such a charming side? She even learned how to flirt without a teacher. Yi Qianshang revealed a charming smile. Naturally, I like you. Jiyu's little face turned red. She looked up and revealed a charming smile. Then will you marry me? Yi Qianshang was stunned. Although she already knew the answer, Jiyu still felt a bit uncomfortable when she saw his silence. Jiyu sighed and seemed a bit worried. Royal father said that only my husband could kiss me. But you kissed me. Her eyes were filled with accusation as she looked at him. So this little girl was forcing him to marry her? Yi Qianshang slightly curled his lips. When he wanted to say something, he felt a sharp pain in his foot. The charming seductress immediately turned into a proud kitten. Ji took the chance when he wasn't paying attention to stomp on his foot before quickly kneeing him. She was satisfied to see Yi Qianshang's face turn green. She revealed a cute smile and spat out her unfinished words. Humph, daring to act like a hooligan to this princess. You have to pay the price. Yi Qianshang looked at her before silently lying on the side and closing his eyes to rest. Actually, she didn't really go against him. Yi Qianshang was just coaxing her. However, when he saw how proud she was, he decided to let her be proud for a while. Ji was proud for a long time, but no one came to support her. She couldn't help feeling a bit bored, so she found a seat far away from Yi Qianshang. She had just woken up and was not sleepy at all. Therefore, her pair of big eyes darted around, sizing up her surroundings. In the end, his gaze involuntarily fell on that person. He looked like he was already in deep sleep. His long eyelashes covered his eyelids, and his light red lips were slightly pursed. The silver butterfly-shaped mask looked hazy and mysterious under the moonlight. Ji Yu's curiosity was aroused again. Why was he wearing a mask? Was it because it was too ugly? Impossible. Although she couldn't see his face clearly, Ji Yu was sure that he was definitely more handsome than any man she had ever seen. That's right, he was an assassin, so he naturally had to hide his true appearance. However, there was no danger now. Should she help him take off his mask? Wearing a mask all day must be uncomfortable, right? Then again, he had already kissed her, so she had the right to see his true appearance. Ji Yu desperately encouraged herself in her heart. Chapter 2489. Ji Yu desperately encouraged herself in her heart. He was asleep, so she moved gently and put it back on him. He definitely wouldn't notice. Ji got up and slowly walked over. As she got closer, Ji Yu's heart beat faster, almost jumping out of her chest. She patted her chest with her little hand, desperately trying to comfort herself. It's fine. He's asleep. He still had a smile on his face, looking perfect and charming. Ji Yu carefully squatted down and slowly reached out her hand. At this time, a crackling sound came from the fire, scaring Ji Yu so much that her heart almost stopped. She quickly took back her hand, and her large eyes opened wide as she nervously looked at Yi Qianshang. Yi Qianshang acted like he didn't notice and was still sleeping. Ji Yu was still a bit worried as she softly called out, "Yi Qianshang, are you asleep?" Her voice was as small as a kitten's. She called out a few times, but he didn't respond. Ji Yu finally relaxed and boldly took off his mask. Her actions were very rough. Ji Yu, she stared at her hand and was a bit stunned. What was going on with her? Didn't she say to be gentle and careful? He would definitely wake up like this. Ji Yu didn't dare look over. You took off my mask, but you didn't look at me. Little girl, what are you thinking? Yi Qianshang's lazy voice sounded. She was caught. Ji Yu suddenly closed her eyes, and her long eyelashes trembled. I didn't see anything. She threw the mask over and kept her eyes closed. Quickly put it back on. I won't look. She might be silenced if she saw the true face of the #1 assassin. What was she thinking before? Yi Qianshang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He played with the mask in his hand before putting it back on and casually saying, "It's too late." Ji Yu angrily opened her eyes and met his sparkling eyes. I didn't see anything at all. Moreover, I returned the mask to you. What else do you want? Yi Qianshang looked at her with a bit of playfulness as he pulled her over. No one has ever dared to take off my mask. You are the first. Ji Yu looked at him in fear, but she didn't dare resist. He looked at her, who was as stiff as a block of wood in his arms, and chuckled. You have two paths. One is death. A pair of jade-white hands were placed on her tender neck, bringing with it a slightly cold breath. Ji Yu felt goosebumps all over her body. What about the other one? Ji Yu hurriedly asked. Yi Qianshang kissed her cherry blossom-like lips before revealing a charming smile. Marry me. Huh? Ji Yu was a little confused. Didn't he just reject her? Why did he want to marry her now? If he were to agree just like that, he would feel a little embarrassed. Propose now? It was too late. Ji Yu closed her eyes and didn't say anything. She didn't say anything, so he kissed her again and again. He sucked on her cherry red lips and then delved into her mouth. Ji bit down, but his tongue swam out like a slippery fish and then came in again. Ji gradually felt suffocated. She was forced to open her eyes and glared at him. Didn't you say you didn't want to marry me? Yi Qianshang curled his lips into a smile. You should let a man propose, little girl. He lowered his head and kissed her again. After the kiss, Ji was panting. Chapter 2490. This little girl was too seductive. Seeing her crying appearance, he couldn't help wanting to bully her. He couldn't control himself. If she hadn't fainted, he wouldn't have been able to control himself and would have taken her here. There were several coughs that came from his embrace. Ji coughed until her eyes were filled with tears. Yi Qianshang held her in his embrace and gently patted her back. Ji's eyes were still a bit hazy when she opened them. Her eyes were purple, and it took her a while to realize who this person was, the person who bullied her until she fainted. Ji fiercely bit down. Yi Qianshang almost unconsciously slapped her away. He said in a deep voice, "Let go." Ji fiercely bit down and didn't let go. Yi Qianshang's tone was a bit dangerous. Little Ji, if you keep biting, I can't guarantee that I won't bully you again. Feeling the person in his embrace let go, his lips curled. His chest gradually became wet, and a large patch was soaked. Yi Qianshang was stunned. He pulled her away and saw a crying little face. His heart ached, and he couldn't help softening his tone. Little Moon, why are you crying? Ji didn't have the energy to correct him. She was crying so miserably that she was out of breath. Other beauties were delicate and beautiful when they cried, but this one was crying like a little kitten. Yi Qianshang let out a sigh and held her in his embrace. He was a bit helpless and pampering. Don't cry, I won't bully you anymore. Ji was choked with sobs as her voice came out intermittently. Before, you bullied me so ruthlessly. I only bit you once, and you were fierce to me. Woo woo woo, I don't want to marry you. Her voice was filled with complaints. Want to take this chance to break the engagement? Yi Qianshang tidied up her clothes bit by bit, covering her body. He stroked her long hair and comforted her in a low voice. I was too impatient. Don't cry. I'll treat you well in the future. Although he was burning with desire right now wasn't the time. The beauty was in his embrace, but he could only look and not eat. Ji cried for a while and took this chance to break the engagement several times. Yi Qianshang comforted her the entire time, but he didn't respond to her words. She felt a little bored crying, so she stopped crying. She sat in his arms, tears still hanging from her long eyelashes, like an exquisite doll. Her voice was still nasal. Do you really want to marry me? Yi Qianshang raised his hand and scratched her nose. You've already kissed me and touched me. Why are you still asking? Ji suddenly looked up at him, her big eyes showing a rare seriousness. I like you very much, I admit, although we've only known each other for a few days. I know I'm not being reserved, but I'm just like this. If I like you, then I like you. If I don't like you, then I don't like you. I like you, so I want you to marry me. Yi Qianshang was startled. He pulled out a smile. Of course I will marry you. Ji shook her head and looked at him seriously. You don't have to rush to make a promise. Let me finish first. Yi Qianshang's gaze was a bit complicated. Ji closed her eyes and said, If you want to take responsibility because you kissed me, then there's no need. You can leave now, and I won't blame you. But if you marry me rashly and don't love me, then in the end, you betray me. Chapter 2491. Ji's eyes were serious as she said word for word, I will hate you for a lifetime, and I will make you pay the price. Her voice was soft, but her words were firm. Yi Qianshang's eyes moved as he silently looked at her. Ji firmly looked at him, not backing down at all. Although she was naive and didn't understand the world, she would bet her life on love. Either love for a lifetime and grow old together, or they would grow to hate each other and bury each other. Her feelings for Ji had always been simple and clear. Yi Qianshang gave a sigh and revealed a look of regret. It seems like this playboy will be hung on a tree like you. Ji pursed her lips and didn't say a word. Yi Qianshang gave a laugh and pulled her into his embrace. He stroked her hair. Little moon, I like you, so I want to marry you. It isn't an impulsive decision. He lowered his head and kissed her eyes. Yi Qianshang won't let you down. That night, he held her, and she listened to his heartbeat the entire night. It was steady and powerful. She thought that he would be her husband in the future, someone she could rely on. You hugged his neck and revealed a proud smile. You are mine from now on. You can only love me and spoil me. I'll leave a mark first. She gave him a kiss on the cheek. They played in Jiyu's country for 3 days, and they had a lot of fun. Jiyu had never been this happy before. They enjoyed the mist together, sat on the top of a mountain, and watched the sunrise and sunset. The golden light scattered across the continent. They watched the waterfall fall that was like an upside-down river. They enjoyed the scenery during the day and slept in each other's arms at night. Other than the last step, they did everything they should and shouldn't do. Every time they reached a critical moment, Ji would call for them to stop. She wanted to save herself for their wedding night and give herself to him in one piece. Although Yi Qianshang was about to explode from holding it in, he still listened to her and stopped. He hugged her to calm his surging emotions and then began to take advantage of her purple moon city. The river of stars was bright and the moon was high in the sky. A silver and purple moon hung high in the night sky. The silver and purple splendor sprinkled down, creating a dreamlike scene. The streets were bustling with carriages and horses. Countless people were walking back and forth happily, wearing new clothes and congratulating each other. Not far away, gongs and drums shook the sky. Dragons and lions danced, and large red lanterns were hung high. Countless bright and beautiful fireworks exploded overhead, leaving the whole sky gorgeous. The fiery tree, silver flower, never sleeps. The two of them had changed their appearances. Yi Qianshang changed Jiyu's appearance into that of an ordinary little girl. She was bouncing in front with a pink dress that made her look like a juicy peach, exuding an alluring fragrance. She turned around, her small face full of excitement. Qianshang, here. She picked up a hairpin and proudly shook it. She revealed a cute smile to Yi Qianshang. Qianshang, do you think I look good with this hairpin? How could she not be beautiful? Yi Qianshang ruffled her hair and then raised her chin, pretending to sigh. You're beautiful, but it's a pity. Your hair is messy like a chicken's nest. Jiyu puffed up her face in anger. Isn't it all because of you? Bad guy. Yi Qianshang revealed an evil, charming smile that overshadowed the entire world. If this one is a bad guy, then what about you? A bad guy's beauty? Chapter 2492. Even with Jiyu's nerves, she could tell that this person was teasing her. Her little face turned red as she angrily rolled her eyes at him before running forward. Yi Qianshang laughed and chased after her. Run slower, don't get lost. Jiyu angrily ran forward, running far away in a single breath. She turned around, but there was no trace of that person. He didn't catch up? Jiyu's heart was filled with indescribable disappointment. Her heart was filled with anger and grievance. She kicked an innocent stone and charged forward. She was caught off guard and fell into the cold embrace of a plum blossom. Her nose turned sour, and she almost cried. Her chin was lifted, and her eyes were filled with tears. There was a sigh from the person above her. You want that hairpin that much? You want to cry? Jiyu actually didn't want that hairpin that much, but hearing that person's helpless and pampering tone, she suddenly felt wronged. She lowered her eyes and didn't say a word. Her little feet restlessly kicked the stone for fun. A white jade hairpin suddenly appeared in front of her. The carving was smooth, and the phoenix on the hairpin was lifelike. It was the hairpin from before. Jiyu's eyes opened wide, and she snatched it. She happily played with it in her hands and revealed a large smile to Yi Qianshang. I knew you were the best. Her eyes were filled with a starry sky that was shockingly bright. Yi Qianshang was stunned for a moment before narrowing his eyes and saying in a threatening voice, Little moon, you can only smile at me like this in the future. Do you understand? The lethality was too great. It was no use even if he changed her appearance. she would still look like a pure and charming enchantress. Jiyu giggled and said, "Are you jealous?" Her heart was filled with sweetness. Yi Qianshang suddenly lowered his head and kissed her. It was like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water. He revealed an evil smile. "Little moon, there's no benefit in making me jealous." Jiyu's eyes opened wide as she covered her mouth and looked around. After making sure no one was paying attention, she glared at him. Jiyu definitely didn't know that her shy and angry gaze was even more seductive than a direct invitation. Yi Qianshang's beast blood was boiling. Yi Qianshang suddenly revealed a smile. Jiyu took a step back, and her heart was filled with alarm. But it was already too late. He pulled her into his embrace and leaped into the air. His speed was so fast that he was like an afterimage as he flew into the distance. Jiyu didn't even have time to ask before she was brought into the air. She was so scared that she hugged his neck. Although she knew Qin Gong, she couldn't fly so high. Even though Yi Qianshang was flying with a person in his arms, he was still as relaxed as usual. He lowered his head and said, "Little moon, open your eyes." Who would dare to open their eyes at such a height? Yi Qianshang's smile deepened. "If you don't open your eyes, I'll kiss you." Jiyu had no choice but to open her eyes. As soon as she opened her eyes, she was shocked. Yi Qianshang held her and stood on the peak of the dark cloud mountain. "Ah!" Jiyu was screaming in her heart. This was too high. She tightly hugged Yi Qianshang's neck, and her large eyes couldn't help rolling around. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. The purple moon, as big as a wheel, seemed to be right in front of his eyes. The silver-purple light flowed down in waves and turned into countless sparkling particles in the air, sprinkling down on the raging human world. Looking from the top of the mountain, they could see the entirety of Purple Moon City. The houses were neatly lined up like small boxes, and the red lights were moving through the city like dragons. There were faint sounds of gongs and drums, mixed with the lively voices of countless people. Chapter 2493. The sounds of the world were weak, but it was very lively. Jiyu felt like she and Yi Qianshang had become two immortals, standing alone and enjoying the prosperity of the world. Looking down at the Purple Moon City she grew up in, Jiyu suddenly felt a sense of unfamiliarity. At this moment, standing at such a high position and looking down at the familiar place, Jiyu suddenly felt like she had been abandoned. Too lonely, she couldn't help hugging Yi Qianshang tightly. It was a good thing he was with her. Yi Qianshang looked at her expression that kept changing before it finally settled on a disappointed expression. He raised a brow. "You don't like it?" Jiyu shook her head and slowly said, "No, I like it very much. It is very beautiful here, but looking at Purple Moon City from this angle, it's very unfamiliar." Yi Qianshang's heart skipped a beat, and he stroked her hair without saying a word. Jiyu suddenly asked, "Your martial arts are so high. Do you often fly into the sky and stand on top of a mountain, looking at the world through the clouds?" Yi Qianshang stroked her hair and softly said, Jiyu muttered, "Then you must have been very lonely before." Standing on top of a mountain and looking down, it was beautiful and strong, but it was lonely at the top. Yi Qianshang was stunned. Jiyu hugged him tightly and buried her head in his chest. "But it's different now. I'll be with you." There was a sudden warm current in his heart that washed over the cold and hard place, bringing a burst of warmth. Yi Qianshang closed his eyes and opened them again with a rare seriousness. He looked at Jiyu and softly said, "No matter what happens, you'll always be with me." Jiyu nodded. The purple moon was in the sky and the river of stars was shining. The two people under the moon had decided to spend their lives together. Then it's a promise. This scene was incomparably beautiful. The purple moon in front, the river of stars above, the world below, and the beauty in his arms. Yi Qianshang would never forget that night, that scene, and the person in his arms. Jiyu suddenly looked up from his arms and smiled. "Qianshang, I'll take you to a place." He took her to see the cold moon without any smoke or fire in the world. Then she would take him to see the quiet moon in the world. Yi Qianshang was stunned. A complicated light flashed in his eyes, but he nodded in the end. All right. Huayu Tower was located in the center of Purple Moon City. It was the best place to admire the moon, and it was exclusively used by the royal family. At the same time, it was also the most heavily guarded place in Purple Moon City because the purple moon god amethyst was stored here. The purple moon god amethyst was the source of Purple Moon City's enchantment. As long as the amethyst existed, the enchantment would exist. There were a total of 5 purple crystals distributed in the 4 corners and in the center, and the largest piece of purple moon god crystal was in the Huayu restaurant. Entering and exiting this place required the protection of a special moon god token. Trespassers would die without leaving behind a corpse. However, Jiyu seemed to have been protected by the moon god since birth and could freely travel through barriers. Perhaps it was because today was the moon god festival. There was no one guarding this place. Every moon god festival, the power of the enchantment was at its strongest. Even a fly could not fly in. Naturally, there was no need for guards. Therefore, the full moon emperor decided to give them a holiday. Jiyu had Yi Qianshang take the moon god token and then brought him through countless barriers to the magnificent moon tower. The purple moon was in the sky, and countless stars were shining brightly. Looking at the sky from the magnificent moon pavilion was like looking at a flowing blue wave. The purple moon was rippling in the water, and countless faint purple rays of light fell into the magnificent moon pavilion. Chapter 2494. A gentle power rose from his dantian and soothed all the troubles in his heart. He didn't know if it was because it was in the center, but the moonlight in the Flower Moon Pavilion was much purer than other places. The two of them were bathed in the gentle moonlight, making them look like they were wearing purple clothes. Jiyu said with a smile, "Qianshang, isn't this place beautiful?" Yi Qianshang kept looking at her. Seeing her sweet and cute smile, he was a bit absent-minded. He seemed to be absent-minded quite often tonight. He curled his lips into a smile. "It is very beautiful." Jiyu's face turned red. "I didn't want you to look at me." Yi Qianshang pulled her into his embrace and lowered his head to kiss her. "The scenery is even more beautiful." Jiyu broke free and said with a serious expression, "Qianshang, today is the Moon God Festival. I heard that if you make a wish to the Moon God, all your wishes will come true. Perhaps you should make a wish." Yi Qianshang closed his eyes, but he didn't make a wish. He didn't believe in the existence of the moon god. He just wanted to make her happy. He curled his lips and looked at Jiyu, who was sincerely making a wish with a smile that wasn't a smile. Jiyu opened her eyes and looked at him with sparkling eyes. "Qianshang, what wish did you make?" Yi Qianshang patted her head and said in a profound manner, "It won't come true if I say it." Seeing her pure and beautiful smile, a thought suddenly appeared in his mind. This was the first time in his life that he made a wish to a god. Jiyu pouted. "All right then." Yi Qianshang was suddenly curious about what she wished for, but Jiyu's lips were tightly sealed. He couldn't pry it open no matter how hard he tried, so he could only give up. Actually, he could easily guess her wish. It was for him to love her and spoil her for the rest of his life. But he guessed wrong this time. It couldn't be said that he was completely wrong. He only saw Jiyu's pure and cute side, but he ignored her fierce nature. "I believe that Qianshang loves me, so I swear in the name of Jiyu country's princess that I will be with him for the rest of my life. If I go against it, my body and soul will disappear." Yi Qianshang tapped her nose. "Stingy little girl." Jiyu made a face at him. "I'll tell you later." Yi Qianshang rubbed her head and revealed a faint smile. "All right, I'll wait." Jiyu nestled in his arms, bathing in the moonlight, as lazy as a cat. She raised her head to look at the moon, but his gaze remained on her. In an angle that Jiyu couldn't see, Yi Qianshang's eyes were filled with complicated emotions. There was hesitation, reluctance, regret, and a trace of unknown annoyance. He had been planning for so many days, and now it was time to act. But this little girl, Yi Qianshang's gaze became even more complicated. He had always been swift and decisive, but for the first time in his life, he was a bit hesitant. "Qianshang, Qianshang." Ji waved her hand in front of his face, looking confused. Yi Qianshang was stunned. He looked at Ji with a complicated gaze. Ji was stunned. Yi Qianshang spoke with a faint bewitching tone. Little girl, close your eyes. Ji was now obedient to him. Although she had some doubts, she still closed her eyes. The night was a bit cold, and the wind blew on her body, making her feel a bit cold. His cool hand brushed past her eyes, her nose, her mouth, and finally landed on her fair neck. Chapter 2495. His cool hand brushed past her eyes, her nose, her mouth, and finally landed on her fair neck. His fingers paused slightly, and a slightly cold touch touched his skin. Ji felt her hair stand on end. She unconsciously reached out to touch it, but he stopped her. Little girl, don't move. I'll put it on for you. When his hand brushed past her carotid artery, he paused for a moment. The expression in his eyes changed intensely as he gently caressed her fair neck. Feeling the throbbing under his hand, Ji felt her hair stand on end, like some kind of danger was about to descend. After a while, his kiss fell onto her eyes, followed by a sigh. He still couldn't do it. A strong sense of sleepiness hit her, and Ji only had time to mutter, I feel sleepy, before falling asleep. When she opened her eyes again, she was still in Yi Qianshang's embrace. Her body was warm, but it was slightly cold, with a hint of coldness. Looking at the moon, she was surprised. How long did I sleep for? Yi Qianshang tapped her nose and gave a sigh. You really are a sleepy person. You actually fell asleep while standing. I was your bed for 2 hours and didn't even dare move. Jiu's face was a bit red. She didn't know why she suddenly fell asleep. She crawled out of Yi Qianshang's embrace and even gave him a massage before pulling him up. When she pulled him up, she found that he had changed his clothes. It was clearly a light purple, looking charming and enchanting under the moonlight. Now, however, he was dressed in a gloomy black, almost blending into the night. She rubbed her eyes. Why did you change your clothes? When did you change? Yi Qianshang gave a sigh. Little girl, you actually drooled when you slept. My clothes were stained with your fragrance, so I changed them. Jiu's face turned red. She unconsciously touched her little mouth, but she didn't feel any saliva. I've already wiped it clean for you. Yi Qianshang revealed a smile that wasn't a smile. His finger gently stroked her little mouth and touched her cherry lips as he slowly said, I'll keep that dress forever. I won't wash it again. Jiu's face turned even redder when she heard this, but the bubbles of joy in her heart grew even more. She quickly changed the topic. You look good in this dress, too. This person was simply like a clothes hanger. No matter what clothes he wore, he would be able to wear them exquisitely. The black robe on his tall and straight body gave him a mysterious feeling under the purple moon. It gave her a different feeling. The more she looked at him, the more she liked him. Jiu couldn't help but throw herself into his arms again. There was a nice cold fragrance on his body. After smelling it for a few days, she had already gotten used to it. Smelling his scent made her feel at ease. Suddenly, she wrinkled her nose. Why do you smell like blood? Are you injured? Her little hand was about to pull at his clothes. Yi Qianshang held her little hand that was randomly moving around. Don't worry. It should be an injury from the fall in the cave 2 days ago. Little girl, you can't sleep well, and even kicked my wound. It's just a bit of skin, it's fine. Ji was relieved. She still felt a bit guilty, so she wanted to see his wound. But Yi Qianshang didn't allow it. He said that the wound was in a special place, and it wasn't convenient for her to see it. Moreover, it wasn't important. Ji didn't insist. Chapter 2496. The two leaned against each other for a while and chatted for a bit. Yi Qianshang looked at the moon and gave a lazy yawn. It's getting late, let's go. Ji was still a bit reluctant. These past few days had been the happiest for her. She never thought that just being with him would make her so happy. However, this was the last day she would be with him. He was going to carry out the assassination mission tomorrow. Ji looked at the handsome man beside her and couldn't help saying, You're going to assassinate Jun Luyi tomorrow, right? How much do you know about him? Yi Qianshang looked at her with a smile that wasn't a smile. Little girl, How much do you know about him? Jiyu pouted her lips. I've heard people say that he is a pervert. Yi Qianshang raised a brow. Where's the pervert? Jiyu thought about it before counting the things she had heard with her fingers. He is cold and ruthless. He has killed many, many people. Yi Qianshang curled his lips. When he leads troops to war, how could he not kill people? Do you think he leads troops for fun? Jiyu choked. If he only kills people on the battlefield, no one would call him a pervert. But after he captured other people's cities, he slaughtered innocent people and didn't even let the children go. I heard that after he captured Huanhua City, he slaughtered 10,000 people. That's why others gave him the title of a Zhuro war god. Yi Qianshang slightly narrowed his eyes and softly said, he encountered the most stubborn resistance in Huanhua City and lost 30,000 soldiers and his best brother. In order to take revenge, he ordered all the enemy soldiers to be killed after he captured Huanhua City. He didn't kill any civilians. Killed? Why didn't he kill them? He even killed several hundred children. Yi Qianshang gave a laugh. That's just a rumor. How do you know it's just a rumor and not the truth? Jiyu wasn't convinced. I'm the #1 assassin, so I naturally have reliable information. Yi Qianshang revealed a smile that wasn't a smile as he rubbed her head. It's different from what you heard. No one understood Jun Liuya better than he did. Leading troops to war was originally a cold and bloody affair. In order to obtain victory on the battlefield, one would do anything. All kinds of schemes were endless. The winner was king, while the loser was in the wrong. The level of darkness and cruelty was not something that a little girl like her could understand. He stood up and pulled up this little girl who was as transparent as glass and as delicate as a flower. It's getting late. Let's go back. Jiyu held his hand, her big eyes looking even clearer than the moonlight. Then you. Be careful. I'll wait for your safe return. She hesitated for a moment before biting her lips. Regarding the assassination of Jun Liuya, you just have to do your best. Most importantly, you have to come back alive. Yi Qianshang had a complicated look as he revealed an evil smile. You're that worried about me? Of course, I'm still waiting for you to come back and marry me. You won't forget about this, right? Jiyu's eyes widened. Of course not. Yi Qianshang paused before pulling her hand. All right, go back obediently and wait for me to marry you. The two of them, one tall and one short, gradually disappeared into the distance. In the depths of the magnificent moon tower, in a secret room filled with traps, there was a crack in the center of the purple moon god's crystal that went through the entire crystal. There was a faint blood color at the crack, looking enchanting and evil. Chapter 2497. At the crack of the crystal, there was a faint blood-red color that looked demonic. It was as if someone had suffered a backlash from the crystal when they were trying to destroy it, causing them to splatter on the ground. 3 days later, in the palace, Jiyu lay on the gorgeous bed in Chiyue Palace and rolled around in boredom. She touched the necklace around her neck and felt as if there was a piece of honey hidden in her heart. Using the 1,000-year-cold iron as a chain, a sparkling and translucent gemstone with a purple glow hung from it. The gemstone seemed to have moonlight surging within it, rippling gently. The word Yi could be faintly seen in the middle. This is a token of our love. When I come back, I'll marry you. That person's lazy and low voice seemed to still linger by her ear. He returned half of her savings to her and even magically conjured the 1,000 flowing flower for her. Jiyu patted her little face, her big eyes filled with happiness and sweetness. Although she was scolded by her anxious parents the moment she returned to the palace, she could just act coquettishly and get over it. Yesterday was her father's birthday, and she personally presented the 1,000 flowing flower to him. Her father was so happy that he immediately became interested and composed a poem. Her father was a poet, and his poems had been spread throughout the continent for a long time. Some people said that if her father was only a poet, he would have greater achievements and might even become a poet. It was a pity that he became the emperor. Because her father was a poet, the ministers under him also knew how to compose poems and songs and were put in important positions. The most common thing to see in the court was singing and dancing. No one really paid attention to the raging war outside. Junlyoye was about to completely destroy the neighboring country. Jiyu's court finally heard some news and became a little nervous. However, the emperor's birthday was the most important. At such an important time, reciting poems and singing praises was the most important thing for the court officials. Therefore, this impromptu poem made by her imperial father was immediately praised by all the civil and military officials. There were even some civil officials who took the opportunity to present countless poems to the little princess, praising the little princess to the heavens for a while. However, Jiyu was not interested in poems and was not interested in them at all. Last night, she had reported to her imperial father and imperial mother, clearly telling them that she already had someone she liked and that they had already made a secret promise. She thought that it would be a storm, but she didn't expect that her father and mother would be so open-minded about this matter. After asking about the specific situation, her father explained to her the pros and cons of marrying an assassin and asked if she was still willing. Of course, she was willing. Imperial father sighed and patted her head. Finally, he said, "Your marriage is up to you." As long as Yi Qianshang came to propose, the palace could begin preparing the dowry. Her wedding with him must be at night. At that time, the moon must be at its fullest, and the two of them will be clothed in the moonlight and swear to the moon. With the moon god as the witness, they tied the knot. The 9 prefectures rejoiced, and the world cast sidelong glances at them. Princess Ji-Yu's wedding should be this grand. The setting sun was blood red, and the sunset glow was like fire. That fire burned through half the sky. It was a demonic and intense red. There was a sense of foreboding. Bright Moon Temple, Jiyu Country. Reporting. The Huiyuan nation has officially declared war on us. Reporting. The 50,000 soldiers of the Huiyuan nation had broken through the Thousand Cloud Pass. The Thousand Cloud Pass has fallen. Reporting. The 100 Spirits City has fallen. Reporting. The Shenyang Gate has fallen. Urgent reports were blown into the palace like snowflakes, making people feel cold. Chapter 2498. Full Moon Emperor sat on the throne and looked down at the officials with a pale face. The Huiyue Kingdom had clearly come prepared this time. Although they had broken through other cities, they definitely couldn't break through Purple Moon City. No matter how many people came, Purple Moon City's barrier was said to be left behind by an ancient god. It was very powerful, and anyone who tried to force their way in would be struck to death by heavenly lightning. Only those with the moon god token could enter, and each person had 1 token. As long as the moon god purple crystal in the center of the city didn't break, not only would the Huiyue Kingdom not be able to break in, they would also be struck to death by lightning. Jiyu Kingdom was a country protected by a god. So although Full Moon Emperor's face was pale, his heart was still very calm. The news from the front also spread to the harem. Jiyu was also restless in her palace. Yi Qianshang had been gone for half a month, and there was no news of him at all. That Junlyoye was still attacking her kingdom and clearly hadn't been assassinated and was still alive. What about Yi Qianshang? Would he fail and be captured? Would he have been beheaded by that pervert Junlyoye? Countless terrifying thoughts appeared in her mind, making it hard for her to eat and sleep. Report. Huiyue Kingdom's 30,000 soldiers have broken into Purple Moon City. A soldier covered in blood rushed into the throne room and threw down a giant bomb before dying. Full Moon Emperor's face instantly turned pale, and he suddenly stood up. Impossible. The officials' faces all turned pale. A person wearing a Taoist robe ran and covered in blood as if he had gone crazy. Your Highness, the barrier is broken. It's broken. The moon god is angry, no longer protecting our kingdom. He suddenly slammed his head against a pillar and died. Blood splattered all over the officials. Blood. There was blood everywhere. There were palace maids and eunuchs running everywhere. The Huiyue Kingdom's soldiers who rushed and grinned as they raised their deathly blades and killed 1 person with 1 slash. The blood that splashed out dyed Chiyue Palace red. Princess, Princess, let's go this way. Ji Yu's personal made Xiao Yang tightly held Ji Yu's hand and ran towards a certain direction in the palace. Ji Yu staggered a bit, but her mind wasn't on running away. The soldiers of the Huiwei kingdom had barged in from the front. Her parents were still in the throne room. How were they? Ji Yu's face was pale. She suddenly broke free from Xiao Yang's grip and ran frantically to the throne room. Imperial father, Imperial mother, nothing must happen to you. She ran as fast as she could, using almost all of her power. Along the way, she naturally encountered soldiers from the Huiwei kingdom who were waving their swords wildly. These soldiers came to capture her and pull her back, but she cut them away with all her might. If one person went all out, 100 people wouldn't be able to stop him. What's more, Ji Yu's martial arts had improved. Although she was not as strong as a true expert, it was more than enough to kill these ordinary soldiers of the Huiwei kingdom. Wherever she passed, several soldiers from the Huiwei kingdom would fall to the ground. Her hairpins and jewelry had fallen off, and her pink dress had turned into a bloody dress. The little princess, who had been ignorant of the hardships of the world, was now in a sorry state and fierce state. Before this, she had never killed anyone. When the sword in her palm pierced into the chest of a soldier for the first time, the warm blood splashed out and sprayed directly on her. She almost vomited, and her face was frighteningly pale. But she didn't have time to think, nor did she have time to deal with her weakness. The worry for her parents and the hatred for the soldiers of the Huiwei kingdom made her burst out with the greatest energy. Chapter 2499. The girl, who used to be so kind that she didn't even dare to kill a chicken, had now turned into a Shura from hell. More and more soldiers of the Huiwei kingdom died under her sword. Naturally, she attracted the attention of more soldiers of the Huiwei kingdom who broke in. More and more soldiers came to stop her. Catch her! Catch her! This little girl is too cruel. She killed so many of her brothers. Kill her. Avenge our brothers. No, this little girl looks good. Let's play with her first. The soldiers, who were tempered by blood and fire, were naturally violent and wild in front of the enemy. Some scolded, some chased, and some besieged. The smell of blood mixed with the smell of male hormones filled the whole palace. After all, Ji Yu was alone and had never experienced a war. How could she be a match for these well-trained soldiers? She was shot in the leg by an arrow that came out of nowhere. She staggered and almost fell to the ground. The soldiers immediately surrounded her. A bold, bearded soldier pounced on her and pulled her skirt directly with his big hand. It was the first time in Ji Yu's life that she had been so close to such a violent person. She almost fainted and was about to vomit. Ignoring the pain in her leg, she suddenly withdrew her leg and kicked him away with her good foot. In the screams of the soldiers, she threw out her sword and stabbed it directly into the man's heart. She jumped up, but the pain in her injured leg was so severe that she staggered again. She quickly supported herself with her sword. Damn it, this little girl is quite fierce. Hot enough, I like it. A man who seemed to be the leader approached her with a heavy sword in his eyes. She stepped back. A soldier behind her suddenly pounced on her, but was kicked away by her. The leader pounced on her again with a green light in his eyes. Princess Xiao Yang, who was shaken off by Ji Yu, finally broke through the encirclement of the soldiers and rushed over. She threw a flame flower on the spot. With a loud bang, a circle of smoke burst out, temporarily blocking the sight of the fierce soldiers. Xiao Yang took the opportunity to pull Ji Yu's hand and ran out. Princess, don't fight. Come with me. Xiao Yang's hand was so strong that Ji Yu felt that her wrist was about to be broken by her. Xiao Yang led her to run among the soldiers and kill them. The sword in her hand flashed, and from time to time, it swept past the soldiers of the Huiwei kingdom who came to stop them. Her movements were swift and precise, and she was invincible. Ji Yu's eyes widened. Xiao Yang, who had always been gentle and weak in front of her, was actually a hidden martial arts master. Looking at his ability and reaction speed, it was obvious that he had undergone special training. However, at this time, she had no time to ask about Xiao Yang's martial arts. She grabbed Xiaoyang's hand and said in a trembling voice, "Xiaoyang, save my father and mother. Save my father and mother." Xiao Yang's feet paused for a moment, and then he flew away with her. "Princess, you should save your life first. His Majesty and Her Highness. Heaven helps the worthy." The cooked duck flew away just like that, and the soldiers were naturally unwilling to give up. They yelled and shouted as they chased after them. "Stop them! Don't let them escape!" Chaos, blood, screams of people around, and the sound of swords piercing into flesh in the face of war. Human lives were as cheap as grass, cut off one by one. Ji Yu's mind was in a mess. There was only one thought in her mind. Even if she died, she would die with her parents. She did not want to live alone. Chapter 2500. In the chaos, a few silver lights flashed and shot toward them. The silver light was extremely fast and powerful, bringing with it a sharp whistling sound. Liang and Ji, you were killing the soldiers, blocking the way. When they realized that something was wrong, the silver light had already rushed to them. "Princess!" Liang's face changed, and he rushed to Ji Yu desperately. Several silver stars shot into Liang's back. Blood splashed, and Liang slid down softly on Ji Yu's body. "Liang!" Ji Yu's voice was already hoarse, and she could hardly shout at the moment. She was going to fight with these beasts. Ji Yu's eyes turned red. If she had some leeway when she attacked just now, because of her weakness at this moment, she was going all out. She waved her sword like lightning, and the soldiers who rushed to her were directly cut into pieces by her sword and flew out. Fresh blood dyed her pink blouse red, leaving large patches of blood stains on the ground. Although her martial arts were not low, even a tiger could not fight against a pack of wolves. In the fight, she had been cut several times and gradually fell into a disadvantageous position. Blood sprinkled down like rain. She alone had killed dozens of people. A few more cold stars flew over. This time, they directly hit her legs. Intense pain assaulted her. She swayed and fell to the ground. Her treasured sword also fell to the ground with a clang. A general who was obviously the leader rushed up. "Little bitch, I don't believe that I can't control you." Ji Yu wanted to struggle, but she was exhausted. The general's face was ferocious, and he tore open her collar. Suddenly, he paused, and his eyes fell straight on the necklace hanging on Ji Yu's neck. He trembled in fear. Suddenly he felt a chill on his back, and blood splashed, and then he was kicked away. Ji Yu felt dizzy, and her vision was getting darker and darker. In her blurred vision, a man walked quickly, with endless anger and killing intent in every step. Wherever he passed, blood splashed, and countless soldiers of the Huiyue kingdom fell down. General, one of the soldiers knelt there, trembling in fear. His face was filled with unconcealable fear as he looked at the man in black robes walking towards him. It was as if he was looking at the Grim Reaper. "General, we are the Crown Prince's subordinates." Before he could say a second word, he was killed by the man with a sword. The man walked in front of Ji Yu and looked down at her from above. He wore a ferocious ghost mask on his face, making it impossible for others to see his true expression. He only felt that this person's aura was extremely cold, as if it had been frozen for 10,000 years. It was cold and austere. Ji Yu had lost so much blood that she could barely see anything. She stared at the person and suddenly trembled. She reached out her trembling hand. "Qianshang, is that you?" That person did not move. His demonic face was ferocious as his cold voice rang out. "I am Jun Liuye." Ji Yu was shocked. Her mind became clear for a moment, and her little hands clenched tightly. It was this demon. This demon had destroyed her country and destroyed her family. Why wasn't he dead yet? Why didn't God take him in? "You deserve to die." Ji Yu had never scolded anyone before. All her hatred was transformed into this sentence. Her voice trembled slightly. "You've killed so many people. There will be retribution." Her large eyes were bloodshot with hatred. Jun Liuye looked down at her, his eyes narrowed, and his voice was cold. "On a battlefield, it's either you die or I die. I don't believe in retribution." This person was like a heavenly deity standing above her, completely blocking out her light. Chapter 25:01. He bent down and reached out a hand to her as if he wanted to do something. Jiyu ignored the pain and desperately rolled to the side. Her wound was touched, and she was in so much pain that her face turned pale and her vision turned black. "Don't touch me with your dirty hands. Demon, someone will kill you." Jun Liuya's body stiffened, and he straightened up. He looked down at her coldly. "You sent that assassin?" Unfortunately, he escaped. He looked at her for a moment, and suddenly turned around. He coldly ordered, "Take her away," and strode away. Her weak voice came from behind him. "If you don't kill me, you'll regret it." Jun Liuya's body paused, and he seemed to smile. He left behind 4 cold words. "Let's wait and see." Jiyu looked at him deeply, as if she wanted to carve his appearance into her bones. Finally, she slowly closed her eyes. "Qian Shang, why didn't you kill him?" "Qian Shang, I'm afraid I won't be able to see you again." A lamp was as small as a bean, and hay was piled up. This was a prison cell. It was dark, damp, and gloomy. The smell of rotting blood floated in the air. Ji was curled up on the hay pile. She was dizzy and didn't know where she was. "It hurts." She curled up her body and muttered under her breath. She had suffered quite a number of injuries, and her delicate body was covered with countless bloody wounds. She had always been afraid of pain and would occasionally cry out in pain in her mother's arms when there was a wound on her hand. She was the apple of her father and mother's eyes. If she was slightly injured, her father and mother would watch over her without rest, holding her and patting her gently. This time, she was seriously injured, and all her wounds burned with pain. She couldn't help but cry out in pain in her dizziness, as if she was waiting for her father and mother to comfort her. Sure enough, a pair of hands picked her up, and in a daze, she fell into a warm embrace. "Mother!" Ji was in pain. She thought it was her mother hugging her and couldn't help but pout as tears rolled down her cheeks. The hands holding her stiffened slightly. Someone sighed softly and stroked her face with their fingers, wiping away the tears on her face. His fingertips were slightly calloused and had a toughness that only belonged to men. Her mother, on the other hand, had the softest hands in the world. When she caressed her, her fingertips were like the finest silk. Even though Ji was unconscious, she could still vaguely feel the difference. She subconsciously tugged at the other party's clothes. The material was soft and smooth, and there were some patterns on it. It was very similar to her father's dragon robe. "Father!" She pursed her lips again. "Father, I'm in pain. Can you hug Ji?" That pair of hands was taking off her clothes. When they heard her words, they paused for a moment. They didn't hug her, but their hands moved even faster. Her blood-stained clothes were finally peeled away. The pair of hands unbuttoned her clothes very smoothly and skillfully. They didn't really touch her wound. In a daze, Ji felt a little cold, but the pain lessened a little. That was because the pair of hands began to slide lightly on her wound, as if they were applying some kind of elixir for her. After the ointment was applied, the pain lessened a lot. There were deep and shallow wounds on her body. The shallow wounds were fine, but the deep ones needed to be cleaned. Naturally, it would be painful to treat them. Ji cried out in pain again, but this time it was cold. So afraid of pain, yet so desperate. Someone sighed softly. That voice was vaguely familiar. Chapter 25:02. Ji's body stiffened. Her big eyes blinked a few times as if she was about to open them. However, the pair of hands hit the corresponding acupoints on her body in time. Her mind went blank, and she fainted again. Ji slowly woke up. When she opened her eyes, she found herself in a cell. She was lying on a pile of hay. There was an oil lamp on the table, emitting a dim yellow light. The cell door was closed, and there were a few iron bars above it. Ji sat there for a moment. Suddenly, she stood up and rushed to the door to look outside. There were 4 soldiers standing outside the cell door. Each of them was as straight as a javelin. There was a faint aura of killing on them, which was terrifying. Soldiers of the Hui Kingdom. Her kingdom was destroyed, and it was not a dream. Where was her mother? Where was her father? Her heart was trembling. She desperately hit the cell door with her fist. "Let me out! Let me out!" However, the 4 soldiers turned a deaf ear to her. They still stood there like javelins and did not even bat an eyelid. "Where are my father and mother? I want to see them. I want to see them." Jiyu shook the cell door, and the door rattled. She was so worried that she didn't care about anything else. Her voice was almost hoarse from all the shouting. No one cared. Still, no one cared. Jiyu faintly felt that although the soldiers outside were also from the Huiyue kingdom, they were not the same as the soldiers who chased her in the palace that day. Those soldiers were like a motley crew, but the 4 people standing here at this moment were like a regular army that had been tempered in the Azura field. Jiyu shouted for a long time, but no one cared. She clenched her small hands tightly, but there was nothing she could do. She didn't even know which prison she was in. She did not know how many days she had been locked up here. She had noticed that the wounds on her body had scabbed and were not so painful anymore. She only felt a little itchy, which was a sign that she was about to recover. She remembered that someone seemed to have treated her wounds when she was in a daze. However, who would be kind enough to treat her wounds in such a prison? Was it a dream? She sat there and looked at the wound on her leg for a long time. She could not figure out what was going on. Or perhaps, as time passed, the wound healed on its own? After all, her physique had always been very good, and the possibility of her self-recovery was very high. She looked around, not understanding why they imprison her, the princess of a fallen country, here. Suddenly, a faint noise came from outside, an arrogant and shrill voice, like that of a eunuch. "How dare you stop His Highness the Crown Prince? Do you want to die?" "I'm sorry, Your Highness. We only listened to the marshal. The marshal said that no one is allowed to enter this place without his command arrow." Another voice was neither servile nor overbearing. "His Highness the Crown Prince has a much higher status than your marshal. He is the future monarch of the Huiyue Kingdom. If you dare to stop His Highness, you will be disobeying the monarch. You will be beheaded." The voice was even sharper and angrier. "Outside, we only listen to the marshal. If Your Highness insists on going in, why don't you ask the marshal for a token arrow?" "How dare you? How dare she talk to the Crown Prince like that? Your marshal is the Crown Prince's brother, so he must listen to the Crown Prince's orders. Get out of my way. Military orders are as important as the sky. Please forgive us, Crown Prince. If the Crown Prince wants to force his way in, he will have to step over our dead bodies." The guards outside did not budge an inch. Chapter 25:03. Jiyu could hear the commotion from time to time. Although it was far away, she was still a martial artist and could hear it clearly. Outside, there was the sound of weapons clashing. It seemed that the 2 sides were confronting each other. After a while, a rather dignified voice sounded. "Forget it. This one only wanted to see who the girl that 3rd prince saved was. To think that 3rd prince would not hesitate to personally kill someone. And the person he killed was this one's subordinate. This one will settle the score with 3rd prince." The chaotic sound of footsteps gradually faded away. Ji sat down on the hay. Although she did not know much about national affairs, she had previously investigated Jun Liuye and knew a little about his background. He was the 3rd prince of Huiyue country, with military power and a famous war god. According to Huiyue country's rules, the eldest son of the first wife was the crown prince. So no matter how great his military achievements were, he could only be a general and not the crown prince. The crown prince was his second brother, the empress's son, who was 2 months older than him. It was said that he was a hedonistic son. She did not expect that the hedonistic crown prince would also come this time. Could it be that the people who killed the palace maids and eunuchs were the crown prince's people? Jiyu's mind was filled with questions. Forget it. Jun Liuye was the general who attacked Jiyu country this time. So he was the one who destroyed her country and destroyed her family. Neither he nor the crown prince were good people. They were both her enemies. As long as she did not die, she would take revenge. That person did not kill her, so he must have other uses for her. Jiyu began to go on a hunger strike. She didn't even look at the food that the 4 guards outside brought in, let alone eat it. At first, the food was just ordinary pasta and vegetables. Later, in order to let her eat, the food was changed, and some of them were even things that she liked very much. But since Jiyu had already made up her mind, she wouldn't change her mind. She wouldn't eat it. Not only did she go on a hunger strike, she also cut off water. She was originally injured, so after going on a hunger strike for 3 days, she was dizzy and had lost a lot of weight. She was lying on a small bed. This small bed had been changed for her by the 4 guards who were guarding her 3 days ago. Although the bedding was rough, it was soft and dry, much more comfortable than the pile of hay. She lay on the bed and began to have nightmares. One moment, she dreamed that her parents were killed by the rebel army. Another moment, she dreamed that she was desperately killing people when she was fleeing from the palace. And then she dreamed that Xiao Liang was standing in front of her bed, covered in blood. She broke out in cold sweat, but she couldn't wake up from the nightmare. Was she going to die? In her daze, she seemed to feel her body being forcefully lifted up by someone. Her mouth was forcefully pried open, and a stream of warm water was fed into her stomach, seemingly moistening her dry throat. Before she could react, another mouthful of porridge entered her mouth. Her mind finally cleared up a little. Although she couldn't open her eyes, she still remembered that she was on a hunger strike. She tried her best to spit out the porridge, but someone forcefully grabbed her chin and blocked her mouth with his lips. Her nose faintly smelled a familiar scent. In a daze, she blurted out 2 words, Qianshang. She had porridge in her mouth, so the 2 words were blurred out. Her lips were blocked, but in an instant, a hand wiped her throat and forced her to swallow the porridge. She struggled again, but her wrist was clamped down. A voice whispered in her ear, "If you want to see your father and mother, you'd better eat obediently." Chapter 2504. The voice was magnetic and cold, with the coldness of an iron-blooded general who had been on a battlefield for a long time. Ji shuddered. She wanted to open her eyes, but she didn't have the strength to do so, so she fainted again. Be good, eat another bite. My poor mother is here." Ji suddenly heard a familiar voice in her daze. It was her father and mother. She was shocked and suddenly opened her eyes. It was indeed her father and mother's faces in front of her. Although they were in a sorry state, they were still alive and were surrounding her, right next to her. Furthermore, she wasn't in a dark prison cell. Instead, she seemed to be in a small palace. She was familiar with the layout of this palace, which was similar to Jingxi Palace. Jingxi Palace was a cold palace, which was originally a place to imprison those imperial concubines who had committed crimes. However, although Jiyu's father wasn't good at ruling the country, he was a true sentimental person. He only married Jiyu's mother in his life, so he naturally wouldn't imprison them in the cold palace. Therefore, this cold palace existed in name only. Jiyu used to play here when she was young, so she vaguely knew the layout of this place. Jiyu always thought that her father and mother had been killed. Now that she saw that they were fine, she was relieved and no longer wanted to seek death. She was willing to eat. In just a few days, her imperial father and imperial mother had aged quite a bit. Her father's once straight back was hunched, and half of his hair had turned white overnight. Her mother, who had always been elegant and charming, had countless wrinkles on her face, showing her old age and vicissitudes of life. The country had been destroyed, and the family was about to die. What would happen to their family? From her father and mother, Jiyu learned that the Jiyu kingdom had truly been destroyed. Those ministers had either died for the country or surrendered. None of them were left. Her family of 3 was imprisoned here, and outside were the guards of the Huiyue kingdom, who were like iron buckets. They couldn't escape at all. Every day, it was a female general who delivered food to them. This female general was as cold as a stone, just like the guards outside. Every time she put down the food, she would leave without saying a word. Jiyu could even vaguely sense hostility from her. She didn't care, nor did she have the time to care. After losing the support of his ministers, her father was like an ordinary person. At this moment, he could only panic because he didn't know how long he, the ruler of a fallen country, could live. "He will kill us, he will." When Sky Moon Country was destroyed by him, he killed the entire royal family of Sky Moon Country, leaving no one alive. Jiyu's father began to ramble again. In the 3 days since Jiyu woke up, she had heard this sentence dozens of times. Jiyu's body was pretty good. After 3 days of recuperation, she had almost recovered. Even the injuries on her body were mostly healed. Other than the female general, no one else came to visit during these 3 days. It was as if her family of 3 had been forgotten. Jiyu was a child who grew up in a greenhouse. She didn't know what to do when faced with such a sudden change. Her mind was a mess, and her imperial father's nagging made her heart even more confused. She couldn't figure it out at all. She had also heard of some of Jun Liuye's brutal deeds. His army was invincible. Wherever they went, if the officials in the capital were tactful enough to open the door and surrender, he would give them enough gold and treasures to ensure that they did not have to worry about food and clothing. Chapter 25:05. Not only that, they even opened the granaries to sell food to win the hearts of the people. If the resistance was strong, then the day the city was breached would be the day the city was massacred. Not only would the officials and soldiers who resisted be killed, even the people who ran to the top of the city to help fight the war would not be spared. Because of this, wherever his army went, the guards of the state capitals would not dare to resist and would open the city gates to surrender. Even if the officials were loyal to the emperor and wanted to resist, their subordinates and the people would strongly oppose it. There were even cases where the people killed the officials and opened the city gates themselves. The Cloud Underworld continent was originally an entire continent. It had been united countless times and divided countless times. The common people lived together, just like the 5 dynasties and 10 kingdoms of the past. The establishment of these countries was nothing more than the separation of the warlords. No matter who ruled them, most of the people would not feel humiliated. Many of the people even hoped that the entire continent could be united. This way, there would be less wars, and the people would be able to recuperate more easily. It was because of this that his army could come so quickly and so fiercely. When a small country was destroyed, the obedient subjects could be spared and given a way out. However, the ruler of the country could not be spared. This was the so-called cutting the weeds and eliminating the roots. In Jiyu's era, although the entire Cloud Underworld continent was mainly supported by the 3 big kingdoms, there were still some small kingdoms that were subordinate to them. These small kingdoms were content to stay in a corner and relied on the big kingdoms that were closest to them. Now, those small kingdoms were almost completely destroyed. The royal families of those small kingdoms were either slaughtered or captured as slaves for eternity. Some were even tattooed on their faces and sent far away to desolate lands. It could be said that none of them had a good ending. It was also because of this that Jiyu's father, the Full Moon Emperor, was so anxious and uneasy, like an ant on a hot pan. How could the kingdom be destroyed? How did they breach the Purple Moon City? The Purple Moon City was protected by the Spirit Barrier. Without the Moon God token issued by the royal family, the enemies could not enter at all. The inspection at the city gate was also very strict. Strangers were not allowed to enter the city. The late emperor had said that as long as the Huayu restaurant was protected, the Spirit Barrier in the Purple Moon City would not be broken. It would strike the invaders into charcoal. How could the Spirit Barrier fail? We've been attacked by the enemy. So many enemies have entered the city, but not a single heavenly thunder has struck down. Could it be that the heavens want our GU country to perish? Full Moon Emperor muttered listlessly. The Empress also clenched her fists. I don't understand either. The failure of the barrier should be due to an accident with the crystal in the Huaihua Tower. However, the Huaihua Tower itself has a barrier. Without a special token, outsiders can't enter at all. The people who can enter are all people His Majesty absolutely trusts. Who would destroy the crystal? Jiyu's mind had been muddled these days. Now that she suddenly heard her father's words, her heart suddenly sank. His hands and feet suddenly turned cold. Could it be that it was Qian Shang who went in to destroy the crystal? No, it can't be. He was an assassin, not a citizen of the Huihui Kingdom. Why would he do such a thing? Besides, it was purely a coincidence that she found him. He treated her so well, liked her so much, and even said that he wanted to marry her. He would never do such a thing. If he married her, he would be the prince consort of Gu country and would be able to hold great power in his hands. It would be much better than him being an assassin. The destruction of Gu country would only bring him harm and no benefits. He wouldn't do such a stupid thing. Chapter 2506. She couldn't doubt him. While Gu was trying her best to comfort herself, the female general came to deliver food again. This time, there were 4 dishes, 1 soup, and 3 bowls of rice. For the first time, the female general's sharp eyes fell on Gu. After sizing her up for a while, she suddenly said, "This meal is delicious. The rice is precious, so don't waste a single grain of rice. That's the only way to survive." She was obviously implying something. After the female general left, Emperor Yuan Yu pondered her words for a while. His face changed slightly, and he immediately said, "I'm afraid that Jun Liuye is going to do something to us. This meal might be our last meal." His words made the mother and daughter's faces turn pale. The empress burst into tears. "You and I are already old, so it's fine if we die. But our daughter is still in her prime, a flower that hasn't fully bloomed yet. If she is harmed like this, won't he kill me? Your Majesty, is there any way to help our daughter escape?" Emperor Yuan Yu was a man who had been an emperor before, so he was still decisive at critical moments. His eyes fell on the food. "Perhaps our chance of survival lies in these dishes." Emperor Yuan Yu's guess was right. There was indeed a secret in the dishes. At the bottom of Jiu's bowl, he dug out a piece of paper. There was only a short line of words on it. "Tonight at midnight, reinforcements have arrived." This piece of paper gave this family a chance of survival. According to Emperor Yuan Yu and the Empress, this chance of survival was naturally given to their daughter. However, Ji was determined to live and die with her parents. She didn't want to escape alone. In order to persuade their daughter, Emperor Yuan Yu and the Empress almost cracked their mouths, but Ji was unmoved. In order to persuade his daughter, Emperor Yuan Yu preached a series of principles. For example, as the only princess of Ji Kingdom, she bore the heavy responsibility of reviving the kingdom and avenging her parents. In the end, Emperor Yuan Yu and the Empress threatened that if Ji didn't agree, they would kill themselves in advance. Under such circumstances, Ji had no choice but to agree. At midnight, reinforcements arrived as expected. The so-called reinforcements were actually 2 people. One was a masked man in black, and the other was a girl with a similar figure to Ji. The guards outside had been knocked unconscious for half an hour by some unknown method. The black-clothed and masked man took the opportunity to bring the young girl in. The young girl had obviously fainted and was at his mercy. The black-clothed man asked Ji and the young girl to change their clothes. Then, the young girl would pretend to be Ji and lie on the bed. Then, the full moon emperor and the queen would act as a cover. In this way, it would not be easy to be discovered. Then, the black-clothed man hurriedly left with Ji. Ji felt as if there was a ball of fire burning in her heart. She felt like she was in a nightmare that she couldn't wake up from. She missed her parents, but she had no choice but to escape alone with others. Originally, she was doted on by her parents. As long as she cried, she could get everything she wanted. Now, her tears were almost dry, but she couldn't wake up from this nightmare no matter what. Every time she closed her eyes, she would imagine that everything was just a dream. When she woke up, Ji country would still be peaceful and prosperous. She would still be the most pampered princess of Ji country, getting whatever she wanted. But every time she opened her eyes, she was faced with a nightmarish reality. Her country was gone, and the fate of her parents and herself was precarious. And there was only one culprit behind all of this: Jun Liuye. Ji clenched her fists so tightly that her fingernails dug into her palms. The hatred for the destruction of her country burned fiercely in her heart. Chapter 2507. The seed of hatred sprouted in her heart, and quickly grew. She wanted him to pay the price. She would definitely make him pay the price. The person who brought her away was very skilled in martial arts. Jumping high and low, they avoided the heavy patrolling guards and rushed out of the palace. Jiyu's small mouth was tightly pursed as she ran with this person. In any case, her qigong was quite good, so she didn't cause too much of a burden to this person. They ran out of the palace and came to a secluded street outside. In the middle of the night, there was a curfew in the city. Aside from the patrolling soldiers of the Huiwei kingdom, there was almost no one on the street. It had to be said that this Jun Liuye was indeed skilled. In just a short 7 or 8 days, the shadow of war could no longer be seen in the city. There were a few houses with lights still on, and faint laughter and chatter could be heard from the houses. It was as if everything was the same as before. For the people, it didn't matter which regime was in power. As long as the people were given a stable and safe life, it didn't matter. After the fall of the kingdom, the only ones who truly perished were probably the Ji family and a few ministers who were absolutely loyal to the Ji dynasty. Her father was a good father, a good husband, and a good poet. The only thing, he wasn't a good emperor. After ruling for so many years, there weren't many loyal ministers, and the people didn't even lean towards him. Jiyu had always thought that the outside world would be filled with mourning, and that the people would be unable to suppress their grief. She didn't expect to see such a peaceful scene. On the busiest street, there were even many restaurants and inns that were operating as usual. So this war was just the collapse of a few people's worlds. You were sent by Qian Shang? Jiyu finally asked the question that had been suppressed in her heart. He was the only one she could think of. Although she had many friends, none of them had the ability to bribe the guard in the palace to save her from that iron bucket of a place. That person snorted and pulled her by the arm to fly out. Why didn't he come to save her himself? Was it because he was too heavily injured? Jiyu grabbed that person's sleeve and stared at him with a pair of large eyes. How is he? Is he heavily injured? That person glanced at her and said vaguely, "You'll know when you see him." After that, no matter how Jiyu asked, he didn't say anything. The fire in Jiyu's heart burned brighter and brighter. She simply stood still and said, "If you don't tell me, I won't go." The black-clothed man paused for a moment, then suddenly let out a strange laugh. "If you don't want to go, then don't go." His figure flashed, and he actually left Jiyu alone on the street, leaving her alone. Jiyu, what's going on? Did he just abandon her like that? What was his goal? At this time, Jiyu didn't have time to think too much. She turned around and ran towards the darkest place. Who is it? Catch her! A group of soldiers from the Huiwei kingdom emerged from the ground and surrounded her in an instant, as if they had come out of the ground. Those soldiers were obviously experts. In just a moment, they had captured Jiyu, who was fighting like a cornered beast. A lantern shone on her cheek, and Jiyu subconsciously closed her eyes. Someone seemed to recognize her. She is Jiyu country's little princess. Wasn't she captured? Why are you out here? Could it be that he was secretly released by someone? Take her and give her to the Lord. The group of people was noisy, and Jiyu had a headache. Chapter 2508. The group was noisy, and Jiyu felt a headache coming on. She could vaguely feel that there was a large conspiracy here, but she couldn't guess what it was. She had several wounds on her body, and these people were very rough when they captured her. She didn't know who it was that slapped her neck, but her vision turned dark and she fainted. When Jiyu woke up, her vision was still a bit blurry. It was like there was a layer of mist in front of her. She could only vaguely see a person standing in front of the bed, looking down at her. That figure gave her a faint sense of familiarity. Qian Shang, Jiyu subconsciously asked. That person gave a soft laugh. Who is Qian Shang? The voice was a bit familiar, but Jiyu couldn't remember where she had heard it before. She finally saw the person in front of her. He was wearing a black robe embroidered with a python and had a handsome appearance. Only his drooping eyes looked a bit treacherous. He wore a huge jade thumb ring on his hand and waved a fan in his hand. He looked like a romantic and wanton person. That person looked at her with a complicated gaze. There was shock, disdain, and a trace of passion. This person's appearance was 80,000 miles away from Yi Qianshang's, and there was no similarity in temperament. Only their bodies were similar, but they weren't as tall as Yi Qianshang. Ji Yu's eyes dimmed, and she unconsciously moved back. "Who are you?" That person waved his fan and curled his lips into a smile. "You don't need to know who I am. I'm asking you, what is your relationship with Jun Luyi?" When Ji Yu heard the name Jun Luyi, hatred filled her heart. She slightly lowered her eyes and said word for word, "I will kill him one day." That person raised her chin with his fan. "Little princess, it's not good to lie." This position made Ji Yu very uncomfortable. She reached out to knock his fan away and wanted to get off the bed. "It's up to you to believe it or not." But she powerlessly laid back down after getting up. Damn, the acupuncture points on her lower body hadn't been unsealed. That person looked at her with a playful gaze and forcefully twisted her chin. "You want to get off? All right, then answer my question first. Who is Jun Luyi to you? Why does he protect you in every way possible?" Ji Yu wanted to break free, but she couldn't. That person had restrained all her resistance. She said angrily, "I told you, he's my enemy. He's my sworn enemy." A hint of doubt flashed through that person's eyes. This little girl's emotions were written all over her face, and it was easy to read. She really hated Jun Luyi. Then why did Jun Luyi leave behind the Ji family members? What was his goal? Like her? The man's eyes flickered. Ji Yu didn't like his calculating eyes. "This princess has already answered your question. Shouldn't you let me go?" She didn't want to lie on the bed under this wolf-like gaze. She'd rather lie on the floor. That person's eyes flashed with a hint of playfulness. He stroked Ji Yu's face with his fingers and chuckled. "You hate him so much. How about I help you take revenge on him?" He wanted to help her? Ji Yu resisted the nausea from being touched. Her eyes lit up. "How are you going to take revenge on him?" That person suddenly pounced on her and pressed her down. He said ambiguously in her ear, "He might like you. If I sleep with you, wouldn't that be my revenge on him?" He aimed at her red lips and wanted to kiss her. Ji Yu suddenly raised her hand and wanted to slap him. "Get lost. Let me go." Chapter 2509. The man easily grabbed her hand and said in a gloomy tone, "It's your blessing to be able to climb into my bed. Don't be ungrateful." "My palace." Ji Yu froze for a moment and struggled violently. She screamed, "Get out. Don't touch me. You bastard should go to hell. Go to hell." She finally knew who this person was. He was the crown prince of Huiwa country. Jun Liuxuan's eyes flashed with annoyance. He slapped Ji Yu and said, "Bitch." He suddenly tore down Ji Yu's sleeve, revealing her white arm. Although she was injured, her eyebrows were as beautiful as a painting and her skin was as bright as the moon. She was more beautiful than any woman he had ever seen. Jun Luxian looked at Ji Yu under him and breathed heavily. "No wonder the third prince is reluctant to kill you. You are really a wonderful person." There was a kind of fragrance on his body. Ji Yu almost wanted to vomit. She struggled desperately. She didn't know if she was lucky or not, but the acupuncture points on her lower body were automatically unsealed during this struggle. Ji Yu was delighted and suddenly raised her leg to kick him away. She used almost all her remaining strength to kick him. Jun Luxian was kicked over by her, and Ji Yu took advantage of the situation to jump up and run outside. Jun Luxian sneered and stood up. He didn't stop her and slowly walked out. Looking at Ji Yu, who was surrounded by soldiers, he sneered, "Bitch, you can't escape." Naturally, the crown prince's courtyard was heavily guarded and heavily guarded. This little princess who had aroused his desire would not be able to escape even if she had wings. He only needed to stand here and watch her leisurely, watching her fight like a cornered beast. Even if a beauty were to risk her life, it would still be pleasing to the eye. What's more, she was a delicate princess and couldn't struggle for long. He stood there and only ordered, "Catch her alive. Don't let her suffer any more superficial wounds." How disappointing would it be if such a beautiful and delicate princess had more wounds? With this order, his subordinates suddenly became a lot more timid. They didn't dare to use their big moves on her. Ji Yu, on the other hand, was desperate. All the moves she used were mutually destructive. Ji Yu used the sword she snatched at the last minute to rampage all the way and killed several soldiers. The smell of blood spread again. Jun Luxian watched with interest. Such a delicate little princess was actually so spicy. He liked it. As for the life and death of his subordinates, he did not care. He had a lot of soldiers, so even if 8 or 10 of them died, it wouldn't be a big deal. Hearing the commotion, more and more soldiers came to surround them. The light from their swords and sabers was dazzling. Jun Luxian waved his fan and smiled. With so many people, even if she was worn down, she would still be worn down to death. Sooner or later, this little princess would be his. Ji Yu fought for more than an hour, but in the end, she was no match for the number of people here. She didn't know which expert came out, but he sealed her acupuncture points with silver needles. Ji Yu's face paled, and she weakly fell to the ground. Jun Luxian chuckled and slowly walked over. Wherever he passed, the soldiers moved aside. Jun Luxian stepped on the ground full of blood and came in front of Ji Yu. He lifted Ji Yu's sweaty chin with his fan. Do you think you're still princess? Right now, you're just my slave. Although I like your spicy taste, I still have to teach you a lesson so that you can learn to be more obedient. His expression turned cold as he took a step back. Men, drag her to the torture chamber. Whip, knife, there were all kinds of torture tools in the torture chamber, exuding a strong smell of blood and decay. Ji Yu's hands were tied tightly, and she was hanging there. She was completely helpless. Chapter 25:10. She had been living in the light and warmth all her life. When had she ever seen such a dark side? Everything here was new and terrifying to her. Jun Luxian used all kinds of torture equipment to kill a prisoner in front of her. The prisoner's screams made all the hairs on Ji Yu's body stand on end. Her heart trembled. She was not afraid of death, but to suffer like this, she wanted to bite her tongue to commit suicide. But Jun Luxian was already prepared. Her mouth was blocked by a rag. Jun Luxian used the whip to lift her chin. Little princess, how do you feel? Ji Yu couldn't say anything, but her eyes clearly expressed 2 words: pervert. Jun Luxian smiled. How do you think this prince will deal with you? Kill me. Ji Yu's mouth made 2 sounds, barely able to speak. Although the words were vague, Jun Luxian understood. He raised his head and smiled. This prince is reluctant to kill such a wonderful person. However, this prince will leave a mark on your body. He took out a red-hot iron from the silver charcoal stove next to him and waved it in front of Ji Yu. This prince will give you a stamp. With a rip, her clothes were torn open, revealing her snow-white shoulder. Ji Yu's face was deathly pale. She struggled with all her might, but her body was restrained. She could only watch as the red-hot iron fell toward her shoulder. Rip! A scream was followed by the smell of burning flesh. The lights in the torture room dimmed and suddenly went out. Ji Yu did not feel the burning pain she expected. Instead, she heard an ear-piercing scream. Following that, her bound hands loosened, and she fell into an embrace that emitted a faint fragrance. Her eyes suddenly widened, but the torture room was too dark. She could not see anything. She subconsciously wanted to scream, but her mouth was still stuffed with a rag, so she could not scream. She was stunned for a moment. She felt that she was being carried out of the torture room. All of this happened too quickly, so quickly that no one could react in time. The Crown Prince's guards outside the torture room did not see anything. When they noticed that something was wrong inside the torture room, they rushed in and lit up the lights. The scene in front of them made everyone stunned. The noble and distinguished Crown Prince was lying on the ground, screaming like a pig being slaughtered. There was a large cheap word on his handsome face, which was very shocking. And the little Princess Ji Yu, who had been tied up, was nowhere to be seen. Ji Yu was in a dream. That person was holding her and flying through the air. The scene in front of her quickly flashed, and she could not see the scenery around her. But her heart that was in the air calmed down. Yi Qianshang. It was Yi Qianshang. She recognized the smell on his body. She recognized of his aura. Although he was dressed in black like an Azura of the Dark Knight, and even covered his face with a black cloth, she knew it was him. He finally came to save her. He did not give up. Ji-Yu's large eyes were filled with tears. The tears rolled down and fell on the arm holding her. His arm slightly stiffened, and his flying body slightly stopped. "Good girl, sleep first." His large palm gently stroked the back of her head, and Ji-Yu immediately dozed off, closing her eyes in his embrace. In her daze, she seemed to hear him sigh faintly. "What should I do with you?" The voice seemed to come from the sky. It was like a dream, and then Ji-Yu fell asleep. Chapter 25:11. Ji-Yu's eyelashes trembled, and she opened her eyes. There was a person standing by her bed. That tall figure blocked most of the light. Who is it? The frightening scene from before appeared in her mind. There was a flash of fear in her eyes, and her body unconsciously shrank back. In the flickering light, she heard that person sigh. "Don't be afraid, it's me." "It's him." Ji-Yu's eyes widened, and then she threw herself into Yi Qianshang's arms. The familiar cold fragrance of plum flowers lingered around her. It was like those days when she was in high spirits. The destruction of her country was just a nightmare for her, Princess Ji-Yu. Her tears couldn't help falling down and soaking his robes. She was like a wounded little beast that had taken off the disguise she had put up before. Her body was trembling as she cried. Yi Qianshang raised his hand to stroke her long hair as his heart was filled with mixed feelings. Ji-Yu grabbed his sleeve, and her face was covered in tears. "Qianshang, why didn't you kill him? Why didn't you kill that demon?" Yi Qianshang's body stiffened, and he didn't speak for a while. The expression in his eyes changed as if he was fighting a fierce battle. "Qianshang, why aren't you saying anything? Is it because you can't beat him that you didn't kill him? No matter what, can you give me an explanation?" Ji-Yu's voice was trembling without her noticing it. Yi Qianshang's eyes dimmed. "I'm sorry." Ji-Yu's heart suddenly sank. The doubts that she had suppressed before could no longer be suppressed. They rushed to appear and formed a line. A guess slowly floated to the surface. It was like a bucket of cold water had been poured over her in the winter, making her feel cold to the bone. Ji-Yu felt that her breathing was a bit difficult, and her fingers were cold. She tightly grabbed his sleeve, and her eyes were filled with unconcealable caution. "Qianshang, tell me clearly, are you one of Jun Luye's people?" Saying this required a lot of courage, the courage to face reality. Ji-Yu used up all the courage she had in her life to ask this question. After asking this question, she felt her whole body go soft and cold. Yi Qianshang's movements paused for a moment before he let out a sigh. He looked at her with a smile that wasn't a smile. "Of course not. Little Moon, are you suspecting me now?" No, he was not that bastard's man. Ji-Yu let out a long sigh of relief, finally putting down the heavy burden in her heart. He was her only hope now, her only support. She almost didn't dare to imagine what she would be like if he was Jun Luye's subordinate. Fortunately, he wasn't. She nestled in his arms, as if desperately trying to absorb the heat from his body to warm her heart that had been frightened for the past few days. "Qianshang, my country is gone. I am no longer a princess. Do you still like me?" She hugged his waist tightly and looked at him unblinkingly with her big eyes. Her eyes looked crystal clear, but there was a hint of fragility in them. "I like you, not because you're a princess." Yi Qianshang sighed. He sat down on the bed and placed her down. "Let me see your injuries." Ji-Yu laid down obediently, allowing him to examine her arms and legs. She had many injuries on her body. Although most of them had formed scabs, there were still a few places where the scabs had cracked and blood was seeping out. In the past, the girl looked like she was carved out of white jade. Not to mention wounds. Not even a small scar could be seen on her body. But now, Chapter 25:12. Yi Qianshang's eyes were dark as he took out a bottle of ointment from somewhere and applied it on her. The ointment was cool, and not only did it soothe her wounds, it also calmed down her restless heart. Ji-Yu couldn't help hugging his arm and rubbing her little face against his arm. Qian Shang, luckily I still have you. I only have you left. She was like a well-behaved kitten as she leaned against his side in trust. She was also very tired after half a day of fright. She closed her eyes and wanted to sleep for a long time. But there was an urgent matter in her heart that she couldn't let go of. Qian Shang, my royal father and royal mother are still in the palace, and they are in danger. I don't know what kind of method that pervert will use to torture them. I'm very worried. Yi Qianshang paused before stroking her hair. Don't worry, your parents. I'll think of a way. Ji Yu let out a sigh of relief. Yi Qianshang's martial arts were so high. If he said he would think of a way, then he would definitely think of a way, right? This person was the hero in her heart, and her Prince Charming. She believed in him. She let out a sigh of relief and finally closed her eyes. In a daze, she heard Yi Qianshang ask her, Ji Yu, how did you escape? Ji Yu had absolute trust in him right now, so naturally she didn't hide anything. She told him everything that happened in a daze. In the end, she was still a bit confused. Qianshang, were you the one who sent that black-clothed man? I only asked, and he became angry. He threw me away and ran away. He caused me to fall into the hands of that perverted crown prince. A cold look flashed in Yi Qianshang's eyes, but he still patted her back. No, there's something fishy about this. I'll investigate this matter. All right, you're also tired, so have a good rest. Although Ji Yu was still worried, she finally had someone to rely on. Her heart relaxed, and she quickly fell asleep. Even when she was asleep, she still unconsciously snuggled up to him. Her little hand was quietly clinging to his clothes, as if she was afraid he would throw her away. Yi Qianshang was half lying there as he looked at the little fellow sleeping sweetly in his arms. His eyes were filled with complicated emotions. After a while, he wanted to move her away, but as soon as he moved, the little fellow clung to him like she was frightened. Her little hand tightly clung to his clothes as she muttered, Qianshang, don't betray me. I'm so scared. Yi Qianshang's body stiffened, and he finally stopped moving. He didn't get up and pulled her to his side. Don't be afraid. I'm here, sleep. He also seemed to have not had a good night's sleep for a long time. After closing his eyes for a moment, he also fell asleep. The dark Sissit was a courtyard's courtyard. A country's palace's mansion. It was originally the residence of a certain prince of Jiyu country. Later on, that prince committed a crime, and the entire residence was exiled. This residence was then abandoned. Later on, it was bought by the Dark Shadow Tower and renovated. It became the Dark Shadow Tower's headquarters. The Jiyu dynasty knew about the Dark Shadow Tower, but the Dark Shadow Tower had many peak experts, and the royal family couldn't afford to offend them. Secondly, it didn't threaten the Jiyu country's royal power, so they allowed it to exist. Now that the Jiyu country was destroyed, it was the Huiwe countries. But for the Dark Shadow Tower, the change in power didn't affect them much. The Huiwe country's soldiers didn't cause trouble for the Dark Shadow Tower. As long as Jiyu stayed here, she would be safe. Chapter 25:13. Jiyu had already been here for 2 days. Yi Qianshang was very busy. Jiyu had only seen him twice in the past 2 days, and both times were in a hurry. He would stay for less than 10 minutes each time before leaving. His martial arts were too high, and he would come and go quickly. Jiyu couldn't catch him even if she wanted to talk to him. In that short meeting, Jiyu naturally asked about her parents, but Yi Qianshang only said that he was trying and didn't talk about it. Jiyu also knew that it wouldn't be easy to save her parents from the heavily guarded palace. So although she was very anxious, she couldn't rush him. Not to mention that the number of times she could see him was pitifully small. She couldn't leave the Dark Shadow Tower because there were people chasing her outside. It was said that people were chasing her all over the city. These past 2 days weren't normal torment for her. The people in the Dark Shadow Tower were very good to her and protected her very well, but she didn't know if it was because they weren't normal people, but they didn't talk normally and the other side would know what to do with just a gesture. They were also like this in front of her. Other than the most important words, they didn't say a single word. Ji was very bored, and adding in the worry for her parents' safety, her temper became a bit irritable. On the sixth day, Ji Yu's princess temper finally flared up when she saw Yi Qianshang. She wanted to go out for a walk. She wanted to go out and see. She thought that Yi Qianshang would try to refuse, but she never thought that after looking at her for a moment, he would agree. But he also had a request. She had to disguise herself when she went out. Ji Yu had already heard of disguise techniques, but she had never seen it with her own eyes. Now, she finally experienced it for herself. When Yi Qianshang finished changing her appearance, she looked at herself in the mirror and found that this disguise technique really did have the power to turn something magical into something rotten. Her once white skin had turned dark, her nose was shorter than usual, her eyes were smaller, and her face was dotted with pockmarks. Wearing men's clothes, she looked just like a country boy. Yi Qianshang had also changed his appearance. He had a sickly yellow face with 2 mustaches on top of his lips. He also wore a robe that was neither new nor old. The originally handsome man had turned into an ordinary man that couldn't be found in a crowd. Ji Yu looked at Yi Qianshang in a daze for a moment. If it wasn't for the fact that her country was destroyed, she would have laughed out loud seeing Yi Qianshang's appearance. But now, before the smile could bloom on her lips, it disappeared without a trace. If the country hadn't been destroyed, her home still existed, and she was still that carefree little princess, just playing such a harmless game with the person she loved. She looked at Yi Qianshang again. This person's aura had completely changed after changing his appearance. She could hardly recognize him. The two of them walked on the streets. The streets were filled with people, and it was not much different from before the war. Almost all the shops were open for business. Guests came and went, and it was very lively. It was the same as the news Ji Yu received. There were many places in the city that had wanted posters for her. Each poster had a picture of her, which was quite vivid. If she didn't change her appearance, she would have been recognized in less than a moment. When Ji Yu was a princess, she often changed her appearance to play. So many people in the city recognized her. So it wasn't strange that someone could draw her appearance. Chapter 25:14. Ji Yu came out this time to hear some news about her royal father and mother, to listen to the voices of the people, and to relax. Since ancient times, restaurants and tea houses were places for gossip, so Ji Yu directly went to a restaurant. She was a princess after all, so she was used to spending money. Even if she was in dire straits, she would still find the largest and best restaurant. She had been to this restaurant 7 or 8 times before, but because there weren't many rich families in the city, this restaurant was usually half full. After the war, Ji Yu thought that there would only be a few people in the restaurant, but she never thought that it would be full. It was very lively. Ji Yu wanted to go upstairs, but Yi Qianshang pulled her back. She saw the disdainful look in the waiter's eyes, and she remembered that she was still dressed like a country bumpkin. Her eyes dimmed a bit. When she first came, this waiter had served her very well. Now the waiter was still the same waiter, but the way he looked at her was completely different. Yi Qianshang brought her to a table in the lobby to sit down. If you want to hear something, it's better to do it in the lobby. There are too many people, and too many people will talk. Yi Qianshang comforted her as he poured a cup of tea for her. Ji Yu's heart felt a bit better. She was still a bit embarrassed. It's not that I don't believe the news you gave me, but I want to hear it with my own ears. Yi Qianshang smiled and didn't say anything. She listened and found that these people were indeed gossiping. Most of them were talking about the Dong family and the Li family. No one was talking about the country. This surprised Ji Yu a bit, but she couldn't guess the reason. The restaurant was lively as usual, but Ji Yu's heart was strangely filled with anger. These people were the citizens of the Ji Yu country. Now that their country had been destroyed, why didn't they feel any grief or indignation? Ji Yu naturally didn't want her citizens to be homeless, but her country had just been destroyed and the citizens were so happy. This made her feel a bit uncomfortable, and she couldn't describe this feeling. She listened for a bit and didn't hear anything she was interested in. She ate a few mouthfuls of food before urging Yi Qianshang to leave. The two wandered through the streets and passed through the crowd. Ji Yu was a bit absent-minded, but Yi Qianshang suddenly pulled her aside to prevent her from bumping into a luxuriously dressed fat young master. Her nose hit Yi Qianshang's chest, and felt a bit sore. She couldn't help calling out, "What are you doing?" Fortunately, her voice had become hoarse due to her recent anxiety. Otherwise, her identity as a woman would have been exposed. "Brat, are you blind? You almost bumped into me." That fat young master didn't give up. Only then did Ji see the meat wall not far away. When had she ever suffered such anger? He was about to explode on the spot. Yi Qian-shang squeezed her little hand and sent a sound transmission. "Don't expose yourself." Then, he bowed to the fat young master and said a few words of flattery. That fat young master proudly raised his chin with his nose pointing at the sky. He looked over Ji Yu and Yi Qian-shang before spitting, "Damn cut sleeves. You've dirted my eyes." He swaggered away. The word homosexual attracted the attention of countless passers-by. Under the baptism of everyone's gazes, Yi Qian-shang revealed an awkward smile. He quickly pulled Ji Yu away. Ji Yu was so angry that her little mouth pouted. She looked at Yi Qian-shang with a strange gaze. "You really are a dragon pretending to be a dragon, pretending to be a tiger pretending to be a tiger." Whether it was his demeanor or bearing, it matched his current appearance perfectly. No one could see that there was anything wrong with it. No one could see that his previous bearing was no different from that of an ordinary commoner. Chapter 25:15. Yi Qian-shang's steps paused. Seeing that Ji Yu didn't have anything else to say, he let out a sigh of relief. He revealed a smile and changed the topic. "Let's go back." Ji Yu finally came out, so she was a bit unwilling. "Let's walk around a bit more." The crowd in front suddenly became restless. "His Highness is here." "Move aside." "His Highness?" That pervert who bullied her. Ji Yu was stunned for a moment before she was pulled to the side by Yi Qian-shang. Most of the people were hiding on the side of the street, so it was quite crowded. Yi Qian-shang calmly opened his arms and protected her in his embrace. There were so many people around her, but no one could get close to her. There was the sound of horse hooves and the panicked screams of the crowd. After a while, a group of people appeared on the street like a whirlwind. On this bustling street, these people didn't slow down at all. From time to time, people's stalls and things they couldn't take away were kicked away by the horse hooves. The person in the lead wore a dark golden robe embroidered with several dragons bearing their fangs and brandishing their claws. He wore a white jade mask on his face, making it impossible to see his features. But from his figure, it should be the crown prince, Jun Luxian. Ji Yu suddenly clenched her fists. Yi Qian-shang placed a hand on her shoulder and said to her, "Don't act rashly." Ji Yu knew that she couldn't casually make a move right now, so she gritted her teeth and endured it. Jun Luxian had his tiger wolf guards by his side. This group of people rode their horses as if there was no one around, leaving a mess wherever they went. When they passed by Ji Yu, Jun Luxian's eyes suddenly stopped in Ji Yu's direction. With a loud shout, "Stop!" the group of people suddenly stopped. Ji Yu's eyes opened wide as she tightly gripped the dagger hidden at her waist. Shwa! The whip flew out, but it wasn't aimed at Ji Yu. Rather, it swept away a girl not far away from her. That girl screamed and fell in front of Jun Luxian's horse. Jun Luxian used the whip to roughly raise the girl's chin and looked at her. His gaze was like that of a wolf or a tiger, scaring the girl so much that her face turned pale and she couldn't stop trembling. Jun Luxian snorted, and with a sweep of the whip, a bloody mark appeared on the woman's face. Jun Luxian snorted, and with another sweep of the whip, the woman rolled several times on the ground, lying on the ground for a long time, unable to move. The crown prince's actions had clearly angered the crowd. The surrounding people were filled with righteous indignation and clenched their fists in their sleeves. Ji Yu naturally angrily glared at him. If it wasn't for Yi Qian-shang calmly stopping her, she would have already jumped out. Jun Liuxuan's group whistled away, leaving behind a mess. Too arrogant, riding a horse in the middle of a busy city and whipping people at will. He's the crown prince. He has the right to be arrogant. So what if he's the crown prince? What a dandy. He's far worse than Marshal Jun, who asked her to be reincarnated into a good family. It was said that the emperor doted on him quite a bit. This time, he even took half of the credit for destroying GU country. It said that he was the one who led the troops to attack Purple Moon City. He is actually just an army supervisor, but he is ordering people around in the army. He is relying on his status as the crown prince to do whatever he wants. The crowd was noisy as they kept talking. They clearly didn't like this crown prince. GU thought of the Huiwe country's soldiers that chased after her when the city fell. Her fingers turned pale as she said in a low voice, "I must kill this bastard." Chapter 25:16. A cold look flashed in Yi Qianshang's eyes. "Don't worry, he won't be proud for long." He pulled GU away. A blue-clothed man came over. He had thick eyebrows, large eyes, and a square face. He walked in front of Yi Qianshang and whispered a few words. Yi Qianshang thought for a bit before giving him a few orders. Their voices were too low and the surroundings were too noisy, so GU didn't know what they were talking about. Yi Qianshang's face was still indifferent, and GU couldn't see any emotions from it. GU was in a daze when she suddenly felt her little hand being pinched. She looked up and met Yi Qianshang's eyes. "Go back with him first. I have something to take care of." GU wanted to ask what it was and if it was serious, but she remembered that they were outside, so she could only give up. She pulled Yi Qianshang's sleeve and said in a low voice, "All right, be careful. I'll wait for you to come back." A gentle look flashed in Yi Qianshang's eyes. He patted GU's head and turned to leave. GU walked in front of the blue-clothed man. "Let's go." That person escorted her away. GU looked at the blue-clothed man's face. The more she looked at him, the more familiar he seemed, like she had seen him somewhere before. She suddenly thought of something. "Your boss has always been in disguise. How did you recognize him?" That person paused for a bit before vaguely replying, "No matter what boss disguises himself as, we can recognize him." "Why?" GU was curious. That person didn't answer and just led the way like a mute. GU looked at his back and felt like something was wrong. When they were about to reach the Dark Shadow Tower, GU suddenly said, "Have I seen you somewhere before?" The blue-clothed man paused and seriously thought about it before shaking his head. "No." GU nodded and then stepped into the Dark Shadow Tower. She followed the blue-clothed man through many courtyards before finally stopping in front of her own courtyard. "I'm here." The blue-clothed man cupped his hands and turned to leave. GU looked at his back and felt like she had seen him somewhere before, especially when he replied in a methodical manner. She closed her eyes, and the people and things she had seen in the past few days quickly flashed through her mind. Finally, it stopped at a scene. It was the face of one of the guards on the night when she was taken away by the black-clothed men and avoided the heavy patrolling guards in the palace. GU raised her eyes and carefully looked at the blue-clothed man. That's right, it was him. She had never failed in her ability to recognize people. But how could the guards of the royal palace become Yi Qianshang's subordinates? Could be, did Yi Qianshang's subordinates infiltrate the palace as spies, or did Jun Luye's subordinates infiltrate the Shadow Tower as spies? Or perhaps the two were originally one. It was clearly the midsummer sun, but GU felt cold all over, and her fingertips were cold. Yi Qianshang was very busy and couldn't accompany GU all the time. GU, on the other hand, was considerate of him and let him do his own thing. She only needed to send a very reliable person with high martial arts skills to protect her. Yi Qianshang sent the blue-clothed man to her side. GU looked at the silent and determined blue-clothed man before smiling at Yi Qianshang. "Is he your confidant? How many years has he been with you?" Yi Qianshang didn't avoid being intimate with her in front of the blue-clothed man. He pulled her onto his lap. "It's been 3 years. Relax. He is very reliable. With him by your side to protect you, nothing will go wrong." Chapter 25:17. GU played with a strand of his hair and obediently nodded. "All right, I'll listen to you. Right? Is there any news from my royal father and royal mother?" Yi Qianshang rubbed her hair. "I'm thinking of something, don't worry." GU didn't say anything. Yi Qianshang looked at her slightly lowered eyelashes, What is it? Ji hugged his neck and whispered into his ear, Qian Shang, if something happens to my royal father and royal mother, I won't be able to live either. Her tone was very serious. Yi Qianshang paused for a bit before kissing her cheek. Don't worry. Yi Qianshang finally left. Ji sat there and watched his back. Her eyelashes trembled, covering the darkness in her eyes. A gust of wind blew over, and she hugged her arms. Doubts were like weeds that grew in her heart. Because Ji was worried about her parents, she would usually stay in one place and be lost in thought. Her temper was also very bad, but as time passed, she might have accepted the current reality and regained her vitality. She was someone who couldn't stay put. Since she couldn't leave the Dark Shadow Pagoda easily, she wandered around the place. She had visited almost all the courtyards and pavilions, and she would often chat with the blue-clothed secret guard. Of course, the things Ji asked weren't important. They were all small family matters. For example, she asked about his hometown or family. The blue-clothed guard wasn't a talkative person, but he couldn't ignore her too much, so he would occasionally answer a few questions. Through these conversations, Ji understood that this blue-clothed man was truly loyal to Yi Qianshang. He shouldn't be a spy sent by Jun Luyi. Perhaps Ji was like a kitten. She would rely on whoever she was with for a long time. She talked more and more when she was with the blue-clothed man and didn't hide anything in front of Yi Qianshang. The blue-clothed man was suffering because he found that Yi Qianshang's gaze became colder and colder. It was clear that his master was jealous of him. He couldn't avoid this task, so he could only helplessly stay as far away from Ji as possible to reduce his presence. When Ji wandered around the Dark Shadow Tower, he didn't follow her and let her wander around. It was fine as long as he didn't leave the Dark Shadow Tower's courtyard. In just a few days, Ji had become familiar with the Dark Shadow Tower. Naturally, she had seen many other guards and killers of the Dark Shadow Tower. Thanks to her good memory, Ji saw two familiar figures. It was the middle of summer, but she felt colder and colder. Many of the doubts that had once appeared in her heart merged bit by bit, allowing her to make a judgment that even she herself did not dare to believe. Yi Qianshang was most likely Jun Luyi. He had lied to her. It was him who had lied to her and coaxed her. She had brought him in a Hawaii restaurant and destroyed the crystal protecting the city. That was why Ji country had collapsed in just a few days. She had wholeheartedly helped her imperial father, but in the end, she had become the sinner who had caused Ji country to fall apart. She thought that she had found the only person she could rely on in this life, but now it seemed that this person was a poisonous mountain. Poison Mountain had consigned her to eternal damnation. She clenched her fists tightly and had the illusion that the world around her was collapsing. She was a fool. He was a fool who'd been played around by others. This person had destroyed her country through her hands, but had used another identity to deceive her into obeying him. It was laughable that she had placed all her hopes of saving her parents on him. Chapter 25:18. She was still pitifully waiting for him to rescue her parents. She thought of the last meal her royal father had mentioned. Her heart fell into the abyss. This person was vicious and merciless. Her parents might have already been killed by him. Yet here she was, waiting foolishly. Ji, you are an idiot. 2 days later, Yi Qianshang walked into the Dark Shadow Tower and asked the guard about Ji's daily life. Everything was normal. Ji used to make a fuss about going out, but she was very obedient these days. Yi Qianshang let out a sigh. He softly pushed open the door and walked into the courtyard. It was already late at night, but the small building was brightly lit and there was a slender silhouette in the window. It was this late, and she wasn't asleep yet? Yi Qianshang pushed open the door and entered. Ji was sitting at the table, copying someone's words stroke by stroke. She was very serious and didn't even notice Yi Qianshang when he came over. She was focused on copying. Little Yu, why are you in such a good mood? Yi Qianshang walked to her side and wrapped an arm around her waist out of habit as he looked down at the words she was writing. Then he slightly knit his brows. The words looked very stiff and the strokes looked very powerful, as if they wanted to pierce through the paper. So ugly. He commented without any politeness. I remember that your words are round and smooth. Why are they so stiff this time? Ji put down the pen. She was probably tired from writing, and her palms were a bit wet. She leaned into Yi Qianshang's embrace. I'm restless. Is there any news from my royal father and mother? Yi Qianshang was in a good mood. He picked up the pen and wrote a line before casually saying, There's a bit of progress, don't worry. Ji stood on the side and looked at him for a while. His words were indeed good, flowing like water, and had the domineering aura of a king. She pursed her lips and took out a cup from somewhere. She poured a cup of tea for him and handed it to him. It's been hard on you. Come, drink some water to moisten your throat. Yi Qianshang's pen paused, and he looked at her before teasing her. When did you become so virtuous? Have you learned how to serve tea and water? Her appearance was like that of a young married woman, which was very different from how she used to be. Ji punched him with her small fist. You've been running around for my parents, so I'm giving you a cup of tea as a reward. What? You don't appreciate it? Her angry appearance seemed to please Yi Qianshang. He looked at her for a while and saw that she was biting her lips so hard that they almost turned white. He couldn't help smiling. Thank you, of course I thank you. He raised the cup of tea and drank in one gulp. Ji secretly breathed a sigh of relief. She took a step back and said, I'll go get you some more water. She wasn't prepared for Yi Qianshang to grab her wrist. Ji's face turned pale as she suddenly looked up at him. He pulled her into his arms and said, Come, I'll teach you how to write. Without any explanation, he handed the brush to her and then clasped her hand that was holding the brush. He said with a smile that was not a smile, People who can be taught how to write by me are rare. Little Moon, you have to cherish this opportunity. Ji couldn't help writing a few words as he held her hand. The moon shines in night. Did these words have a different meaning? Ji looked at these words in a daze. Yi Qianshang's lips had moved to Ji's ears, and he whispered in her ear. It was like he was teasing her. These words contain our names. Ji, you are the moonlight that illuminates the night. Ji froze, and Yi Qianshang behind her suddenly fell down onto the table. Chapter 25:19. Ji slowly turned around and looked at him lying on the ground. The expression in her eyes changed drastically. He had been drugged by her. He had fallen for her trick in the end. It had to be said that this person was very magnanimous. He was half lying there with his body leaning to the side. His black hair flowed down his side, and his long eyelashes covered his face, leaving behind a faint shadow. His lips were even curled into a smile. He didn't look like he had been drugged. Rather, he looked like a drunk man sleeping under a flower. There was a bewitching charm in his free and easy demeanor. Ji reached her hand in her chest and pulled out a cold, glowing dagger. The candlelight in the hall reflected the cold glow of the dagger, giving it a kind of green glow. She tightly pursed her lips and raised the dagger high into the air. Liar! This liar who tricked her heart and ruined her country. She wanted to cut him into 10,000 pieces to take revenge for her parents. Take revenge for her country. She looked down at him as she tightened her grip on the dagger. Her dagger was a divine weapon. It could cut iron like tofu. His neck was right under her dagger. As long as she moved down, she could cut his artery and immediately kill him. She had already planned for this, but she never thought it would be this easy. He had fallen for it this easily. The heavens were really helping her. Her large eyes flickered, as if countless emotions were swirling in the depths of her eyes. Her hand moved down a bit and then moved up a bit. This kind of up and down showed that she was feeling very conflicted. After the dagger moved up and down 3 times, she seemed to have made up her mind. She closed her eyes, and the dagger in her hand stabbed down like lightning. She loved him, but she had to kill him for revenge. At worst, she would kill herself after killing him. Her beloved had betrayed her, and her parents were dead. What reason did she have to live in this world? The dagger seemed to pierce something as it pierced through the handle. She felt that something wasn't right, and she immediately opened her eyes. Her pupils shrank. Yi Qianshang, who was lying there, had actually turned around at this time. perfectly dodging her dagger. The dagger was sharp and pierced into the sandalwood table. It was less than an inch away from his handsome face. Her fingers trembled as she forcefully pulled out the dagger. After that stab, her palms were already drenched in cold sweat. At this moment, her legs were also a little weak. She calmed her heart and stabbed the dagger a second time. Yi Qianshang leaned to the side, and her sword missed again. Her second stab was far less powerful than the first, and it only pierced an inch into the table. Jiyu, he did it on purpose. He might not have fainted. Jiyu pulled out her dagger and desperately stabbed at Yi Qianshang's neck. Suddenly, her vision blurred. She was hugged by the waist. Her wrists tightened as if they were clamped by an iron clamp. She couldn't move at all. Her entire body fell into an embrace. A faint, cold fragrance seeped in her nose, but her heart sank into the abyss. Little Yu, I gave you this dagger to protect yourself, but you used it to assassinate me. Aren't you a bit too heartless? His charming whisper sounded in her ear. At the same time, she felt a pain in her wrist, and the dagger fell from her hand. Yi Qianshang flicked his foot, and the dagger landed in his palm, spinning around endlessly. Jiyu's eyes opened wide as she angrily glared at him. You cheated. So he fainted just now? That was strange. She had clearly put enough knockout drug in his water to knock out a tiger, and she had watched him drink it. How could it not work? Yi Qianshang seemed to understand the doubt in her eyes. Chapter 25:20. Yi Qianshang seemed to understand the doubt in her eyes and gave a soft sigh. I'm the ancestor of killing and plotting against people. Jiyu, your little tricks are full of holes in my eyes. He was a top-level assassin who fought in the Azura battlefield every day, someone who came out from a pile of corpses. How could he fall for Jiyu's trick? Her every move just now was full of flaws. You clearly drank that water. Jiyu still didn't understand. Yi Qianshang flicked his fingernails and said in a soft voice, I have an antidote on me that can cure any poison. So she was nothing but a joke in his eyes. Every move was a joke. Jiyu closed her eyes. Just kill me. Jun Liuya. She couldn't say anything since her skills were inferior. After a while, there was no movement. Jiyu opened her eyes again and saw Yi Qianshang sitting there, playing with the dagger in his hand. There was no expression on his handsome face, making it hard for people to guess what he was thinking. When did you recognize this king? He slowly spoke. His long and narrow eyes looked at her, and the aura around him changed. It was like there was a kind of pressure spreading through the room that made it hard for people to breathe. Jiyu gave a snort. Your disguise is also full of holes. She returned the words he had just said back to him. Jun Liuya was stunned before suddenly laughing. Little Yu, so you also have sharp moments. His laugh had the same taste as Yi Qianshang, lazy and charming. He was actually laughing. He could still laugh. Jiyu looked at his laughing figure, and her heart turned cold. She had entrusted all of her love to him and vowed her undying love. She wished she could live and die with him. But he only treated her as a little toy, so he didn't care about her at all after his plot was exposed. Jiyu was filled with anger, and her body slightly trembled. Jun Liuya was very arrogant. Although he had taken her dagger, he hadn't sealed her acupuncture point, so she was still free. She suddenly broke the teapot on the table with a palm, and tea splashed out. Jun Liuya smoothly moved back, and not a single drop of tea touched his body. Jiyu was already wildly stabbing at him with the broken pieces of the teapot. She was like a mad tiger, fighting without any regard for her life. Jun Liuya frowned. With his skills, it was very easy to restrain her. This time, he sealed her acupoints. His fingertips flicked Jiyu's wrist, and the teapot fragments in her palm fell down. There were bloodstains on the edges of the fragments. Jun Liuya frowned and pride opened her tightly clenched fist. Her palm was dripping with blood from the sharp shards. The wound wasn't small either. It looked like a child's mouth, and blood was gushing out. Jun Liuya took out a bottle of medicine from somewhere and applied it on her palm. His voice was tinged with rare anger. Do you really not want to live anymore? You know you can't win, yet you still come here to risk your life. That's what a reckless man would do. Apart from throwing away your own life, there's no other use. Ji-Yu's small face was deathly pale. Her pair of crystal-clear eyes were now dyed with a few strands of red. Jun Luyi, take your dirty hands away. You don't deserve to touch me. Just kill me. The anger of being deceived and the sorrow of not being able to take revenge almost crushed her. If it weren't for her acupuncture point being sealed, she wouldn't let him touch her even if she had to cut off her hand. Her voice could almost be called sharp. It was clear that her anger had reached its peak. Jun Liuye's fingers paused. He quickly treated the wound on her hand and stared at her. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.